across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good evening. This is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell, and this is the Evening Exchange. There is chaos in our prisons this evening because government ministers cannot make up their minds. The Times is reporting that the Prime Minister is reviewing a plan to pause prisoner early release schemes. This is after the sentencing bill last year. Now we have PC Andrew Harper's murderers. They're going to be let out early, or are they? Because Andy Burnham has said today that he is going to think about it. He's going to review the scheme with the new Lord Chancellor, Alex Norris. But the practical implication for our prisons is that they just don't know what's going on from this government. It's only day 3 of the Burnham number 10, and already there is yet further chaos in our prisons because prison bosses have been ordered to pause plans for the early release of inmates in September. This is after the widow of the police officer described the scheme as deplorable. We'll be talking as well about their transport scheme. The numbers just don't add up. The Transport Secretary was asked today, how do the numbers add up? She didn't know. This is day 3 of Burnham in number 10. We'll talk as well about why he's bribing civil servants to move to Manchester, giving them huge and generous relocation packages. Are there not people in Manchester who are up to the job already? Maybe that hasn't been thought through either. And we will work out whether Alison gets her wish to see my hairy legs, because Claire Muldoon will be talking about that a little bit later on. She's plenty to say on the issue. The Japanese are up in arms as the fact that men are coming to offices wearing shorts because temperatures are something like 41 degrees Celsius. Loads to discuss this evening, both serious and not so serious. Whatever your thought is on any of those issues, please do let me know. I want to know your opinion. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell on Twitter or at CardwellPeter on Instagram. You can send me a WhatsApp voice note. Keep them coming through if they're a reasonable length, maybe about a minute or so or less than a minute. We'll play them out. You can also send me a WhatsApp text message, and you can give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. Loads to discuss between now and 10 o'clock on the Evening Exchange. Stay with us here on Talk. Well, I don't know if you, like me, were incredibly moved by the words of Aileen O'Connor. She is the Thames Valley Police Federation chair, the union for police officers. She spoke to Kevin a little bit earlier on in Drive, and she really, I think, put together all the correct and common sense thoughts when it comes to the fact that PC Andrew Harper, his killers, are to be released under this deplorable scheme. Yes, the Conservatives didn't build enough prison places. There's absolutely no doubt about that. I was a special advisor in the Ministry of Justice when that happened, and I had a part to play in that, and that was wrong. But now Lizzie Harper, Andrew Harper's wife, says it's deplorable. His killers may be released early. Aileen O'Connor had a very, very moving interview with Kevin a little bit earlier on. Let's just take a look at what she said.
Gut-wrenching is my initial reaction when I heard last night, when I was sent the Telegraph report. My heart went to my stomach, if I'm really honest with you, and that's no exaggeration. And I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm incredibly disappointed, and I speak for the voice of my membership across Thames Valley Police. And I actually think I'm fairly confident I can speak for cops up and down the country, because I also think they will equally as be frustrated and angry at the news and the prospects of these individuals being released early from a sentence.
Andy Burnham, our new Prime Minister, said that he was going to review the policy, but that has led to chaos in prisons. This is what the Prime Minister said today.
I feel for the family it's an appalling crime that was committed. The main perpetrator will not be subject to any early release. Of course, others involved have potentially been identified, but I've spoken to the new Justice Secretary. We will review the policy together and make further statements in due course.
But the problem is, if they're reviewing the policy, that means that the prisons themselves, on an operational level, can't make decisions and can't release people, and they need to know who's in the prison, why they're in the prison and how long they're going to be there because of their sentences. We'll talk to Mike Neville in a second, the retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector, about the policing element of it. For the prisons element of it, let's speak to Vanessa Frake, a former prison governor herself. She gives advice to Reform UK on criminal justice issues too. Vanessa, thanks for joining us. This is something that a deputy governor of a prison has told the Times this evening is causing chaos right now in our prisons because the Burnham government doesn't know what it wants to do right now. What do you think?
Well, I mean, you know, absolutely. I can imagine hundreds and thousands of prisoners who've been told they're being released in 6 weeks' time, now being told, well, it's all been put on hold. So, of course, it's going to be chaos. All sentence calculations will have been done by now. Prisoners will have been notified of their impending release dates on the early release scheme. I mean, it's a total cock-up from start to finish. Keir Starmer would not listen. He wouldn't listen to the public. He wouldn't listen to opposition MPs. He went forward with this, and this is what Andy Burnham, unfortunately, has had to take over.
What should happen now to sort this out?
Well, look, I think without a doubt, you know, there were a lot of opposition MPs who said to Starmer and his government that any crimes of domestic violence, rape, grooming gangs, serious manslaughter, murders, etc., should be exempt from the early release scheme. And the Labour politicians not only now laugh about it, but they also all voted against it.
And it's interesting you mention that because the Sentencing Act that is now, the legislation that's there at the moment, talks about the length of the sentence rather than the nature of the crime. So if you have a short sentence for a long crime, for a very serious crime, all crime is serious, but you know what I mean, for a murder, for a rape, for something like that, you're more likely to be let out early. And we have that almost exact situation now with PC Harper's murderers as well.
Yeah, and you know, my heart goes out to the family of PC Harper. I mean, I can't imagine what they're thinking. You know, it's just unbelievable that yet again a government has absolutely, completely rocked the justice system because they think with their vote, they don't think with their head and their heart, and they don't listen to the public opinion. Vanessa,
thank you. That's Vanessa Frake there, former prison governor herself. Mike Neville's in the studio with me. He's a retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector. Hi, Mike.
Good evening.
The policing family really are going to be feeling so horrible about this. We've had the comments from Lissy Harper. I'll read that out in a minute or two. She says it's deplorable the killers may be released early. These scumbags, Cole and Bowers, there were 17 at the time of the incident, were passengers in the vehicle. They were given 13-year prison sentences but could be eligible for release halfway through. Why has it taken this case, do you think, to actually shine a spotlight on this? Because we've had rapists, we've had murderers getting out early, because there just isn't space in our prisons.
Well, it's just outrageous, isn't it? And I'd like to congratulate both PC Harper's wife and mother because they've had the law changed once already, because once this wicked sentence was given to these people, it's too low. They had the law changed, so we've got Harper's law. So if you kill somebody who's on duty, serving the public, a police officer, prison officer, ambulance worker, you will go to prison for life. So they campaigned for that, and now their efforts have helped shine a light on the stupidity of this scheme.
So this is important, Mike. This is the great and horrific and dreadful irony that if these scumbags, Jesse Cole and Albert Bowers, carried this out right now and dragged along a brave police officer in a car they were passengers in and he died of his injuries, I mean, can you even imagine how horrific that would be? It's dreadful. If that happened today, they would be sent to prison rightly for life. Instead, they got 13-year sentences, which could be down to 6.5. They could be out by Christmas. When's the government going to make up its mind here?
Well, the trouble is there's no will. The solution to little prisons, to have not enough prison places, is not to release 60,000 prisoners early in the last 2 years. It should have been to build more. Give me a regiment of Royal Engineers and we'll have some camps built. There's army camps, there's RAF camps not used all over the country with some barbed wire, some men with dogs. You could have had extra prison places, but it's the will. And I look at the new Justice Minister, this Alex Norris. I can't see he's ever had a proper job. His last job was Minister in charge of borders. Well, look at that. That's a fiasco. So what is he going to be like with prisons? These people have an agenda. The Tories were failed, not sorting things out. We've now got a government, I would suggest, where they see criminals as sort of victims of society. They shouldn't really be punished, and there is no will to keep them in. So this whole policy really impacts. You know, it just goes along with what they believe. And the only reason I think the Prime Minister has changed his mind, of course, because there's no votes in it, because PC Harper's wife and mother have highlighted this case, and people can see that wicked criminals are being released. And out there you've got officers who are brave, the likes, who are like PC Harper, who are trying to chase criminals down, and all they see, they catch these criminals, they put them in prison, and then they back out again. It's like some stupid game, and it makes the public less safe. It makes our homes, our streets less safe, because violent and wicked men in particular are out and about when they shouldn't be.
And the problem is now that despite the fact Labour voted for this, despite the fact that people like Alex Norris as a serving government minister will have voted for it, now we've got a new Prime Minister who is reviewing the policy. The officials, the prison officers, the governors, they don't know what's going on. They're not sure what's going to happen. And the Times reporting this evening that the move to review the policy, not make a decision on it, just review it, has sparked chaos in jails across England and Wales as officials scramble to work out prison release plans for thousands of inmates who are due to become eligible for early release after serving as little of a third of their sentence.
And I'll tell you, be rubbing their hands, human rights lawyers, because there'll be prisoners saying the Sentencing Act of 2024 says I should have been released on this day.
Yep.
I was kept in prison for an extra month or something because of this review, and that's unlawful. And do you know what we'll end up doing? All the hard-working people who are listening and viewing the programme today will end up paying compensation.
And that's what happens. And it's so complicated right now to work out exactly when these people should be let out. If they're kept in even a day longer than that calculation, if a small error is made, they get hundreds of pounds of compensation. And that money comes from you and me and our viewers and listeners who are law-abiding people who work hard, and instead it's being given to criminals. And this is just going to complicate things even further, isn't it?
And the whole thing is a swindle. I've always said this. When I was a young police officer, I wondered why a man was not still in prison, because he'd broke into a house, he'd raped a woman. He received 9 years for rape and 2 for burglary. Now, in anybody's mind, 9 plus 2 is 11.
Yeah.
Oh, no. The 2 is served consecutive, so it's 9. He only served half. So 9 plus 2 is 4.5. That's how it works. It's all dishonest. And it's got even more dishonest because people have just been released now for very, very serious crimes. We all understand, don't we, that, you know, youngsters who commit crime, who commit theft or shoplifting should be given a chance. But you've got people on their 40th chance who are just simply not being sent to, you know, they have to do so many things to get to jail in the first place, and when they get there, the government are letting them out early, or they really don't know what's going on. And so the net result is, as I keep saying, people aren't safe in the street, and people have lost faith in the criminal justice system, because what they see is they don't see punishments. And as it was said 100 years ago, justice has not just got to be done, it's got to be seen to be done, and people don't see that at the moment.
Angie's been in touch and says sentences should be served consecutively, not concurrently. And Steve says, I suggest if Andy Burnham doesn't put a stop to the release of these 2 guys, he may as well resign. All respect from the general public and the police will be lost. That's Stephen Hempstead there. Thank you for that. I just want to bring this back to who this is affecting right now, at this exact moment. This is what Lissy Harper, PC Andrew Harper's wife, has said. It's a slightly lengthy statement. I'm going to read it out because I believe she should be heard. She's not doing interviews. She wants her privacy respected, but she has released this statement. So we haven't asked her to come on this programme because we respect her privacy, but we also want her voice to be heard. So I'm going to read this to you right now. Lissy Harper, MBE, said, "It has taken me years to rebuild a life that was torn apart in a matter of moments. Years to pick up the pieces left behind by 3 men whose actions robbed Andrew of his life and stole our future. Now, once again, politicians are making decisions from behind a desk that will have real and lasting consequences for victims' families like mine. It is deplorable to me that we have reached a point where releasing prisoners early is even considered acceptable. We speak of justice, accountability and standing with victims, yet decisions like this do the opposite. They tell victims their suffering matters less and offenders that the punishment handed down by our courts is no longer what they will actually serve. When I fought for Harper's Law, I was supported not only by the Conservative government of the day, but by the Labour Party too. They pledged to support our cause and agreed that those who kill emergency workers should face tougher sentences because some crimes are so grave they demand meaningful punishment. That cross-party support helped make Harper's Law a reality. Today it feels forgotten, says Lissy Harper. For victims' families, this is not about politics. It is just about whether a sentence means what a judge says it means. It is about whether justice is something we truly believe in or something that can be negotiated away when it becomes inconvenient. Andrew deserves better, every victim deserves better, and the British public deserve a justice system they can have faith in. The words of Lissy Harper, MBE. She's put it so brilliantly, hasn't she?
Absolutely, and you, as I say, you've got to congratulate PC Harper's family for they're shining a light on this, because, and we've seen, didn't we, up in the child molester who's been convicted of raping girls, a 21-year sentence and a 19-year sentence. In anybody else's head, 19 and 21 is 40 years. Suddenly it just becomes 21 and he's released early, and there's all this debate about does he get deported back to Pakistan. But I think this case in particular, because of the sheer wickedness of it, when you said about what a way to die, to be dragged to death basically by, and people who know it's happening and carry on because they're so intent on stealing and getting away with that, what they're nicking, something worth a few £100 and they take a life for that. And I think because of the wickedness of this, what's good about, if any good comes of this, is because of the family showing this and using this case, stopping these releases.
Mike, thank you. That's Mike Neville, retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector, joining us on the programme. Paul in Belfast says there are many prisons in the UK, with the majority on large sites with lots of free space. Instead of building a brand new prison, it would be far easier, cheaper and quicker to build extra accommodation wings on existing prisons. Thank you for that. Lots of messages coming in, including from Alison, who says, "Good evening, Cardi P. It is astonishing that Burnham needs to think about the early release scheme. What has he been doing in his previous year of plotting for number 10? Why do we have to wait until September for Burnham to tell us what his policies are and hopefully how they will be costed? How do we have a Prime Minister who has not yet been challenged and interrogated on his plans and what they'll cost the taxpayer? How on earth is this happening? Imagine if this was the performance of a Reform UK government," says Alison in St Albans. Those are very, very wise words, and I'm going to bear those in mind when we look on the debate desk, not just at this fiasco, but at the fiasco of the £2 bus fare. I think if bus fares are £2, that's great. The vast majority of journeys in public transport are done by bus. Wonderful. How is it going to be paid? The Transport Secretary was on TV this morning, didn't know. Lots to discuss with Bill Rammell and with Candace Holdsworth on the debate desk in just a second. Stay with us and get your call in. Let me know what you think of all of this. Day 3 and the wheels are coming off the Burnham bus. 0344 499 1000.
I thought it was disgraceful, and you know, cabinet ministers are allowed to joke about things, but to joke about the fact that we've released 50,000 prisoners from jails under the Labour government since they came to power, I think is extraordinary, and I think it just reveals the contempt that there is. Like, Labour ministers just don't think that matters. I think it's disgusting, and you can only imagine how PC Andrew Harper's family feel about that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to everybody who has been in touch. And Angie has said, I would also have been more impressed if Burnham had just announced he would make all inmates serve the full sentence. Our justice system is broken. And there are a lot of people getting in touch on that particular story, which we're going to return to in just a second on our debate desk with Bill Rammell and with Candice Holdsworth. Whatever your opinion is, 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Get your call in and we'll get as many calls on the air as we can between now and 10 o'clock. There's another big policy from the government today that is about the idea that bus fares will be capped at £2. There is such a lack of knowledge about buses in this country in the media. It drives me completely bats. I go on this rant about once every couple of weeks, and the fact is that the vast majority of journeys in this country are done by car. If you use public transport, you're far more likely to use a bus than a train. We hear so much about the trains, we hear far, far less about buses. I think a £2 cap is a good idea. The question is, how is it going to be funded? This is what the Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, said today.
I will always be honest with the public. It's my style. This week, the three policies I've announced, ending rough sleeping, the bus cap we're announcing today, and the removal of VAT off electricity bills are all fully funded. And that's the way I will go. And people will say, well, how? I've reprioritised. The public's priority is reducing cost of living pressures. And that's what I'm doing. I'm taking a difficult look at some of the things that the government was committed to, digital ID being one example, and reprioritising. And I think that's what people would expect me to do coming into this job.
We'll find out about the reprioritising in a second from a former government minister who's on the debate desk this evening. But Heidi Alexander, who's the Transport Secretary, went out to sell this policy on the media this morning. She was on Sky News and didn't seem to quite know where the money was coming from, how the policy was actually going to be done. Let's see what Heidi Alexander told Sky News this morning.
I don't want to interrupt, but there's just a couple of things I just want... Because you say there on the interest, I know that you're saying the details need to be worked out, but it feels like that is quite a fundamental one, because if you look at, to be completely honest, the West's track record of loaning money to developing nations, you can see why people might have anxiety about that, right? So do we know if there's going to be interest or not?
So this is quite standard to have loans for international climate finance. As I say, the detail will need to be worked out. We wanted to make the announcement today. It's a really big priority for the new Prime Minister Andy Burnham to help with the everyday cost of living. And so, as I said to you,
just trying to get the details of, because this is.
But Sophie, you will appreciate that I'm not going to sit in your studio and tell you how something will work when the detail hasn't yet been worked through.
Really sorry. I'm not.
But the point that I have made to you, and I will repeat, is that in order for loans to actually count towards your ODA budget, your Overseas Development Assistance budget, then the terms on which those loans are given do need to be reasonably favourable to the developing country. We're not wanting to fleece anyone here, and we actually want to maximise the development potential of this money that is available. And so it is in line with what a number of other countries do on international climate finance.
If I could just come in again.
But you'll forgive me.
Heidi,
I'm not going to give you the detail because I don't have the detail to give you.
So that was quite a clash there between Heidi Alexander and the Sky News presenter Sophie Ridge, because the Prime Minister announcing today that he's going to reduce the fare cap from £3 to £2 on buses, funded mainly by changing international climate donations into repayable loans. But the Transport Secretary wasn't giving the detail on that. Maybe it hasn't been worked out just yet. We'll get back to that in a minute. But I want to return to our main story, which is about PC Harper, the law around that, and the chaos that prisons are talking about this evening because government ministers haven't made up their mind yet. Aileen O'Connor is the Thames Valley Police, the union rep for them. The Policing Federation rep is Aileen O'Connor for Thames Valley Police, which was the force that PC Andrew Harper was part of. She spoke to Kevin O'Sullivan a little bit earlier.
Gut-wrenching is my initial reaction when I heard last night, when I was sent the Telegraph report. My heart went to my stomach, if I'm really honest with you, and that's no exaggeration. And I'm angry. I'm frustrated. I'm incredibly disappointed, and I speak for the voice of my membership across Thames Valley Police. And I actually think I'm fairly confident I can speak for cops up and down the country, because I also think they will equally as be frustrated and angry at the news and the prospects of these individuals being released early from a sentence.
The Prime Minister has said it will be reviewed. This is his words on this.
I feel for the family it's an appalling crime that was committed. The main perpetrator will not be subject to any early release. Of course, others involved have potentially been identified, but I've spoken to the new Justice Secretary. We will review the policy together and make further statements in due course.
And that's fine, but the problem is that governors are telling the Times this evening that they don't know what they're doing. They don't know when they need to release people. They're telling people, and it's a legal thing, you're going to be released on this date, but they don't know if that's going to change. So there are at least two areas where the government is perhaps not in trouble, but certainly there are questions to be asked. Let's go to the debate desk now and welcome Bill Rammell, the former Labour Minister. Hi, Bill.
Hi, good to see you.
Great to have you back in the programme. And Candice Holdsworth, the political commentator. How are you doing?
Good.
Bill, there's so much to talk about. Let's talk about PC Andrew Harper first. Dreadful crime. We have a rethink by the government, but we also have prison governors talking this evening about how it's paralysing them because they don't know what the government has decided on this.
It's an appalling case, and I absolutely understand PC Harper's widow, why she feels the way that she does. As Andy Burnham said in that clip, the main perpetrator who killed her husband is not going to be eligible for early release. But let's recognise why we're in this situation. And you know, I know you always hear from Labour figures about the last Conservative government. There's no area where the culpability of the last Tory government is so acute. Just 500 prison places built over 14 years. Additional compared to 28,000 during the new Labour years. They just did nothing about it. And if the government didn't bring in early release, then you would face a situation come November where dangerous criminals who are apprehended, murderers, rapists, would not have a cell to lock them up with. The government can't allow that to happen.
And nothing that you say there isn't correct, and I agree with it. I speak as a former Special Advisor in the Ministry of Justice for 6 months. The Conservatives should have built far more prison places, no doubt about that. The point is, though, that the sentencing bill under Labour looked at the length of the sentence rather than the severity of the crime. That was a mistake, was it not?
I think that's a fair critique. I'm not sure, because you then have to be making value judgments on every crime.
Well, not necessarily. You can say murderers, for example, aren't eligible for this.
Well, but the government has said murderers, rapists and other former criminals are not released. But I think focusing just on the sentence length is a flaw. But look, you know, Andy Burnham's come in with a lot of goodwill. I just caution this review. It's not clear what the timescale is. It's not clear what the remit is. And there's a real risk in just wanting to pacify people. And I get where people are coming from, that you end up raising expectations, and at the end of that review, there's not much change from the early release. Because I genuinely believe there's no alternative.
I want to come to Candice in a second, but if Andy Burnham as Prime Minister decided, actually, we're not going to let these people out early, for example, these two people who murdered PC Andrew Harper. If he is saying that, surely that would require a change in the law, would it not? He can't just do that.
I think it probably would. You can't pick out individual cases.
Yes. So, in theory, if he were to decide, right now, we're not going to let these people out, he would need a change in the law. He'd need to recall Parliament, wouldn't he?
I'm not close enough to the detail, but I think arguably that is the case. And that's why there's a real risk of raising expectations and you end up in exactly the same situation.
Candice, is day 3 of Burnham.
Yeah, but this is the problem, right? So he obviously wants to avoid bad headlines or bad optics. I mean, that was terrible for Keir Starmer's early government when all those prisoners were released and the media were covering them like popping champagne corks. He wants to avoid that. But the problem is you respond to headlines and then you don't look at any of the deeper issues, right? So he just like you say, tries to pacify people. But then why haven't we built any prisons in the last 5 years? I mean, this country is just incapable of building anything.
So we have built a lot of prisons. The problem is it's just not additional prison places. So what you do is you take away the falling apart Victorian prisons, you build a lovely new prison with 2,000 places, but the net result is only 500 additional prison places in 14 years. The Conservatives needed to build far more prison places. They didn't. That's at the root of this policy. So Andy Burnham can say right now, right, we're going to do something specifically on this case. In theory, he could do something on that. But as you correctly say, Candice, the much wider issue is we don't have enough prison places, and that's not going to get any better.
I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, this is Britain, one of the wealthiest countries in the world in the 21st century, and we're releasing people early because we don't have enough prison places. This is crazy, and I just feel like we've gotten used to this. We've gotten used to this level of dysfunction and this level of incompetence, and we sort of see it as normal, and you end up having politicians saying to us, well, we have to do this, we have no choice, and they have gotten used to this low standard of everything not being managed properly. And it's got to end now, because I don't blame his widow and the family members feeling incredibly upset about this. You know, they've tried to say, well, it wasn't the person driving the car, but that's cold comfort, because those people were in the car whilst he was dying a horrible, painful death, and they will be traumatised. That is what happens when people are released.
Of course.
But Candice, I hear what you're saying, but you have to deal with the real world. Now, I think
that is the real world. Those people matter.
No, of course it does. But the real world is this government is massively ramping up prison building. I think there's 14,000 places, but I would be lying, anyone would be lying, if they said you can build those prisons over a couple of months. You can't. It takes years. That was the deficit that the present government included. And I hear the clamour saying, you know, people should serve their full sentences. People haven't served their full sentence since the 18th century in this country.
Now you're making excuses.
No, it's not excuses.
Yes, it is.
For good reason. It's about prison management, to give incentives to prisoners to cooperate. But, you know, if there is not early prison release, the system will collapse. That's the real world.
But that's my issue. Because everything is so chaotic, and all the time we're being asked to accept lower and lower and lower standards. And a family who lost their husband and their son and their brother in the most horrific way possible are being told, well, it's not so bad because of this. It's shocking. Okay. It's shameful.
Wendy has been in touch and says your guests are wrong. There are plenty of cells. Unfortunately, space is occupied by private bathroom, pantries, widescreen TVs. Stick 2 sets of bunk beds in each cell instead of 1 bed. 6 times the occupancy. Problem solved. To put a criminal's rights in private space above the safety of a civilised society and the upholding of justice is an absolute disgrace. What would you say to that, Bill?
I'd say we already have a massive problem with recidivism in this country. You know, prisons are a churn for people who go in and they come out and they commit crimes again. You lock people up in overcrowded cells in an inhumane way. I think you are asking for trouble longer term. And that comes back to bite us.
Final thought from Candice on that.
I mean, I have the opposite view. I sort of take the Rudy Giuliani view. You know, you punish people at the lower level much more harshly to stop the crimes escalating over time.
Let's get a couple of voice notes on this. Tristan has been in touch on this point.
I mean, what they need to do is now, it is simply mass deportations of all foreign prisoners. They need to get with the countries where we've got foreign prisoners. They need to strike up agreements, and they need to do mass deportations. We've got 12,000 spaces that are being taken up by foreign prisoners. They all need to go. They need to be deported. We shouldn't be letting out our own criminals. We should be mass deporting the foreign criminals. Let Albania and Pakistan and all the other countries deal with them. That's what we need to do.
Tristan, thank you. Rob's also been in touch with a voice note.
Why are the lives of voters worth less than the lives of MPs? 2 killers that will never be put up for early release are the killers of Joe Cox and David Amis. But yet cop killers get it. It's wrong.
Thank you, Rob. Before that, either of you want to respond to either of those?
Well, that comment wasn't true. You know,
because if you are convicted of murder, you won't be given early release.
And the perpetrator who was responsible for PC Harper's death is not eligible for early release.
OK. Candice, any further thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I just get the feeling people really want law and order. I mean, I think that period of time, maybe in the 20th century, where people We're a lot more liberal about how we treat crime. I feel like now there's a real focus on punishment. I think, as I say, as the world feels more chaotic to people.
Quite a number of people in touch, including Jackie, who says goodwill doesn't keep the public safe or protect victims, living in fear of perpetrators all over again. Joanna in Salisbury says, hi Cardi B, hi Joanna, why doesn't Bill stop blaming what happened before and look forward? I mean, 2 years and all Labour has done is release so many prisoners instead of attempting to correct the lack of places. In fairness, they have been building prisons, as Bill correctly pointed out. It takes time to do that. So many army barracks, in Joanna's opinion, could have been made secure for extra prison accommodation instead of housing migrants that shouldn't be there. If they're good enough for migrants, they're good enough for prisoners. What do you think of that, Bill?
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
Joanna is saying that army barracks could be used for temporary prisons, even to keep people in for longer. What do you make of that idea?
We could maybe look at that. That may be a solution. But I just want to come back to Candice's point. This notion that crime is out of control, murders are at their lowest level since 1976 in this country.
But petty crime is not shoplifting and all these things.
People are talking about serious crime.
Yes,
you were talking about
yes, but you're nitpicking. I think
I'm not nitpicking.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. The general attitude
is. I'm presenting you with facts.
No, you're not. You're not listening, and you're patronising.
Murder rate since 1976.
Okay, but you know,
one at a time.
But you know what happens when the low-level crime goes out of control?
Yeah.
People's attitudes harden across the board. People become a lot harder and a lot tougher, and they're a lot less likely to give people chances when they experience shoplifting going out of control, for instance. So these things are not disconnected from one another.
And I agree, you need to tackle low-level crime, and one of the significant changes that's been in the last 2 years is not giving a free pass to people who shoplift for less than £200, which used to be the case.
Shoplifting's out of control, Bill. It is absolutely out of control. Listen, lots to discuss on all of that, whatever you think of what Bill and Candice are saying, whatever you think of what I'm saying, and all the politicians as well. 0344 499 1000. We'll talk about that bus fares issue in just a second, see what Candice and Bill think, and what you think too. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Andrew has been in touch from Margate. He says the whole bus fare of £2, not only a fiasco, it's also a Labour U-turn, as it was the Tories that capped it at £2 in 2023 before Labour raised it to £3. Well, this is a big policy. It's an important policy. I support the Prime Minister Andy Burnham in it. I think bus fares should be as low as possible. In some parts of the country, in London, for example, they're £1.75. Bill Rammell and Candice Holsworth are on the debate desk with me. This is not just Andy Burnham lowering bus fares. This is actually a little bit of a change, or a big change actually, to what Starmer did. Do you see a lot of that happening in the last few days?
I do. I think there's one, they've learnt the lessons, and Andy's learnt the lessons of when Keir and Rachel Reeves came in, and it was doom and gloom and massive problems and no projection of what was possible. I think in his early couple of days he's wanted to send a very clear message about support on the cost of living. So the £45 cut on electricity bills, the £2 bus fare cap, I think is the right move. I put my hands up when I first heard the policy. I thought, well, how many people travel on buses? I then looked it up. 43% of people travel on a bus at least once a week. This will have impact.
Yeah.
And you know, in terms of you know, do the sums stack up? What I'm struck by is, you know, I was a government minister for 8 years, and when you make a big policy announcement, you spend months getting the detail right. He's come into office. These proposals have been worked up quickly. I think it's clear that they will add up, but the detail of how and in what way.
Well, we saw Heidi
needs to be
Alexander
fleshed out.
not knowing the detail of how the money would happen. Serena's been in touch and says, Andy Burnham, day 3, performative and vacuous. How can we take this guy seriously? It's almost as if he is playing at being a politician in charge. Who is advising him? Is it the same as Starmer's advisors? It is inevitable that he will feel not impressed, says Serena. What do you think, Candice?
I don't have a problem with it, and I would be absolutely fine with them cutting the foreign aid budget to fund it, because I think that...
But they want to increase that by quite a significant amount.
Yes, the priority should be the poor and the struggling in this country, and I am super sceptical of foreign aid because I think that often it props up failing and corrupt governments. It doesn't go to the right people. I mean, they're doing it through a different financial instrument. They want to do it through loans so that they can increase borrowing to fund it. So it's sort of like a bit of financial...
Jiggery-pokery
yes,
with the fiscal rules. But actually the City of London hasn't been happy with that. The markets have been reacting to that already.
Well, this is the problem, because I think as well... the markets are still unsure how John Healey is going to fund all these things that they've committed to. And if it's more borrowing, they won't be happy. I just think John Healey should grasp the nettle and ruthlessly cut. I mean, for me, if they cut the foreign aid budget down to nothing, it wouldn't bother me at all.
Well, I've already asked. I mean, this doesn't quite fall in with the optimistic tone that Andy Burnham wants to put forward, because at Cabinet yesterday they were saying to government ministers to look for cuts in their department already. Another thing that civil servants are being offered are relocation allowances, #bribes, to go and work in Manchester at number 10 North. Bill, what do you think of number 10 North? Will it work?
I think we live in the most centralised state in the advanced world, and we don't get bangs for our bucks as a result of that. So I think the broad thrust of devolution is right. Number 10 North is a symbolic demonstration of that.
I mean, it's an expensive symbol.
Yeah, but, you know, within the scale of government spending, I think it's affordable. However, a word of caution. You know, I was the Labour Member of Parliament for Harlow in the South East for 13 years. When I first stood for Parliament in 1992 and lost my seat, Giles Radici, a mentor of mine, wrote a pamphlet called Southern Discomfort, that Labour cannot win without winning seats in the South East. And I just think we need to be careful
I've seen loads of cabinet members from Northern and Midland seats as well.
And I just think there's a perception challenge that Andy needs to be careful that it's not all about the North. You know, poor people live in the South East, poor people live in London. They need support as well.
Candice, it's interesting because these relocation packages, it reminds me of the BBC when they were giving people money to go to Manchester. I mean, my point is, aren't there good enough people in Manchester to take these jobs already? Are they saying that they need Southerners to go up there to run number 10 North? It's not exactly a ringing endorsement of the North of England.
Yeah, I agree. I think actually, though, because a lot of my family live in the North, I think because the North has struggled to keep up with the prosperity of the South, and I actually think most of the well-paid jobs in the North are jobs connected to the state, actually, and civil service roles. My big concern about this new number 10 North is it's going to end up being a huge distraction, because, I mean, they just have so much else that they have to deal with, and if they're trying to implement this policy and market it, I don't think it should be the biggest priority right now.
One of the major priorities are going to be the level of taxation. We've talked a bit about how much the money this is going to cost. Lots of different economists, including the Left-Wing Resolution Foundation, which used to be run by Torsten Bell, who was, until I haven't checked my email recently, but he was a pensions minister until recently. We don't know about the reshuffle, but he ran it, a pretty left-wing think tank, a pretty Starmerite-ish think tank, saying that taxes almost certainly will rise, and borrowing, of course, can't rise if you're going to stay within the fiscal rules. That's going to mean ordinary people paying more out of their pay packet. What do you think will happen, Bill? What needs to happen? Because there's a lot of ambition, there's a lot of optimism, we've talked about that, but how do you pay for it?
I don't think it's a given that taxes will rise, because, you know, the first priority is going to be rejig, reprioritise public spending.
Where do you find all that defence money, for example?
Well, yeah, you know, and it's big sums. You can, as I understand it, and Lord Jim O'Neill, who's, you know, very sound fiscally, who's advising Andy Burnham, thinks that there's about 16 billion that you can spend on infrastructure investment within the fiscal rules. But if it does come to tax rises, I'm certain the government won't break its 3 commitments on VAT, on national insurance, and on income tax.
Although they did put national insurance up for employers.
Well, for employers, which was never a commit not to do. But there are a host of other taxes that you could look at. So, capital gains tax being allied with income tax. Nigel Lawson did that in 1988 under Margaret Thatcher, and the world didn't fall apart. I also think the biggest crime the last Tory government committed was cutting corporation tax by 4 pence in the pound. It was not sustainable. I think you could look at that.
Well, corporation tax is already up to 25%, though. Do you think it should be higher?
Well, at that 4p cut, so it came down from 28...
wasn't it 25 to 21, no?
Yes, I think it was. And that hasn't been reversed.
It's in the process of being reversed. It's going up each year. No?
That's not my understanding.
Okay, sorry.
And you know, the Institute for Fiscal Studies at the time said to the government, I think they said a few months later, if we'd known then what we know now, we never would have said that this was sustainable.
Are tax rises inevitable, Candice?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of Labour people have sort of tried to dampen down speculation, but I think unless they want to cut, then they're going to have to raise taxes to pay for everything, which I think will be an absolute disaster. I think people are already feeling the pressure. People are already feeling terribly overburdened by tax. I think the worst thing you could have done was put a tax on jobs. You're not going to get growth if people can't create jobs. And also, you're going to get all the wealth creators fleeing Britain. I mean, they're already so negative about it. You want to create an environment where people feel, I can start a business, I can take a risk, I can make money. That's what you want.
Do you know what I would urge? It's that the next budget is brought forward. One of the fatal mistakes Rachel Reeves made, and I'm trying to think back, it was something like 4 months from Labour winning the election.
You should take it forward to it in September, October?
Absolutely, because otherwise the speculation will get out of control, and that's destabilising.
And that's already been talked about, actually, when it comes to taxation. Thank you to Michelle, who says serious crime is at an all-time low. What has your guest been smoking? More to the point, what does he deem serious crime? There's more than ever violent attacks on machete wielding lunatics, women too afraid to report sexual assault for fear of being called racist or reprisal. Even in my little town, women are being stalked by strange men. We used to hear a police siren once a week, at the most here 10 years ago. Now my child and I count several throughout the day, every day. Gardens are being robbed by strangers in vans. This man is on another planet. People aren't reporting it, as with our famous two-tier policing. It is utterly pointless, says Michelle. Thanks also to Dawn in Chelmsford, who says there was a Yes Minister episode where there was an idea to move civil servants up north. It was suggested Sir Humphrey was appalled because Wimbledon, the Royal Opera and exclusive clubs were in London. That sounds just about right for certainly the civil servants I've worked with. Testy says early release lags, commercialise them, ring fence an island, dump them on there with illegal migrants, drop them the odd bit of food and televise their antics. Have you ever seen Kurt Russell's Escape from New York? Quality entertainment, and I for one couldn't care less. Here, how's about the viewers? Christine says if an illegal immigrant commits a crime, send them straight back to their country. Why put them in our prisons on behalf of the taxpayer? This country should concentrate on our criminals. After all, we have enough of our own, says Christine. We'll come back to the debate desk in just a second after the break. I'd love to hear your views on what Candice and Bill are saying. 0344 499 1000. We will also give you details in just a minute about a council making £24,000 in parking fines on a single street, an NHS trust facing an unprecedented corporate manslaughter inquiry. And when Bill Rammell was a Minister of the Crown, Minister for Armed Forces and a member of His Majesty's government, I'm not sure you anticipated being asked your opinion on hairy men's legs. But we're going to find out what it is in a second. Stay with us.
I thought it was disgraceful, and you know, cabinet ministers are allowed to joke about things, but to joke about the fact that we've released 50,000 prisoners from jails under the Labour government since they came to power, I think is extraordinary. And I think it just reveals the contempt that there is. Like, Labour ministers just don't think that that matters. I think it's disgusting, and you can only imagine how PC Andrew Harper's family feel about that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thank you to everybody who has been in touch. Jackie says, am I missing something? Why are they not releasing non-violent prisoners in for drug offences, fraud, hate speech, etc.? This is madness. Well, they are, Jackie. They're releasing those people too. Penny in Essex says, second day in, and already can tell that our new Prime Minister is quite happy to have convicted and disreputable cabinet ministers running the country into the ground. Brace yourselves, this government is taking us to the next level, the sub-basement, says Penny. Tommy says there's a new £1 billion prison being built in Glasgow, and although on paper it houses more than many more prisoners than one Barlinnie, I think, is that how you pronounce it, operating at 140% capacity. Once built, the old site will probably be sold off to developers. Wendy says if they don't release the prisoners who they've told they're released early, will the human rights lawyers be able to sue the government of the anxiety and stress caused by messing with the release date? Wendy, I think they will. I think that will be something that many human rights lawyers are looking at. I just want to go through three more stories before we get to the 8 o'clock news. One is about a council making £24,000 in parking fines on a single street. Candice?
Yes. So, I mean, most people who've had to deal with councils and parking fines will just be so frustrated when they hear this. I know so many people who've gotten into massive arguments over the council sending them a bill telling them that they've parked somewhere they shouldn't have parked or that they were there too long, and you just get absolutely rinsed. And I do feel that this overzealous policing of parking is having a real... It's having huge consequences for the high street.
And this is the problem, Bill, isn't it? Because there's so many people who don't see the police doing what they feel they should be doing and detecting crime and solving crime. Yet when it comes to people parking on St Stephen's Road, which is in Bournemouth, the council there are taking £24,610 because they've handed out 389 fines.
This is both in the locality and across the country an absolute bloody scandal. And if Andy Burnham wants a populist cause to get on top of, clamp down on the totally over-the-top car parking charges and enforcement that take place. One of my real bugbears is a company called Ringo. Notorious. They have hidden fees. There is digital bullying that you can only pay for it if you go online, and the app is totally unreliable. It's a scandal. We don't have Ringo's views on their own technology. I'm sure they would have something to say about that. Candice?
Yeah, and also a lot of it is often workmen who have to park somewhere and offload their...
So I had a call, sorry to interrupt you. I had a call a couple of months ago from, maybe a bit longer than that, from a workman he's a plumber. And he says that he tries to... The parking charges are so expensive in one of the parts of London. I think as far as I remember, he worked in Kent, lives in Kent, and was working in somewhere like Islington, some expensive part of London anyway. And he said that he parked his van and proactively sought out a what do you call them? Parking attendant to give him a fine. Because the fine was 60 quid, and the parking would be more than 60 quid.
But the thing is as well, a lot of people try and design cities to exclude cars. They don't like cars, but they forget about the realities of working life for people who have vans, who have to offload heavy gear, who can't just like do everything on their bicycle. They've just got no idea. And also a lot of people don't go into the city centre anymore because parking's such a nightmare.
Mike Tapp has been sacked as Immigration Minister. He says, I'm no longer the Minister for Migration and Citizenship, where I was predominantly overseeing the legal migration system. For me, service has always meant putting the country first, and I'm proud to have approached the role with that principle at its heart. Every decision I've made in the Home Office began with my top priority, our national security. He talks about ETA. It's quite a lengthy statement, and he thanks his officials and the private office. I wish my successor the very best of luck. Bill, what's your reaction to that sacking?
Well, I've always thought Mike Tapp was a good guy, but I think he's paying the price for going rogue against his boss.
With Shabana Mahmood. I mean, he had to go, really,
because,
didn't he?
you know, Shabana is really hardline on immigration, driving through the most ambitious reform programme for over 30 years. And he effectively went, you know, freelance, making up his own policy.
I wonder if her being reappointed as Home Secretary, whether that was part of the bargaining process, because her authority was certainly very much challenged by him within that.
And you can't, as a junior or a middle-ranking minister, just, you know, there is collective responsibility.
What's your reaction, Candice?
OK, maybe it's like a little tangential, but you know...
I mean, we're going to talk about hairy legs in a minute, so I wouldn't worry.
But my opinion of Mike Tapp was kind of formed by, do you know he was doing those AI history videos on Twitter?
Yes.
Which was a good idea, but his attention to detail was appalling. So he tried to depict Dover in the 14th century, and there were 20th century cruise ships in the background, and that really worried me for someone who's doing a public administration role. Such poor attention to detail.
OK. I think there are probably a number of aspects of Mike Tapp's performance. We're ringing him and trying to get him on the show, but we're on the case from the top team behind the glass. But Mike Tapp, the Immigration Minister, has been sacked. We're expecting to hear more, probably later on this evening, about quite a number of different changes to not the cabinet, but to the lower ranks of ministers. Alison was in touch with Kevin 2 hours ago and said, I think we should see Peter Cardwell's legs because of this story. Alison then messaged in again. I said to Kevin I'd consider it, but didn't make a commitment on it. Alison messaged in again to say, thank you, Peter. I've put my glasses on in anticipation of your legs. Japanese women have complained of leg hair harassment after men were encouraged to wear shorts to work. With both temperatures and energy prices soaring, a government cool biz initiative has urged men to ditch their traditional uniforms for shorts and polo shirts this summer. But there is a phrase, sunehara, leg hair harassment, which is now being used to describe the uncomfortable feeling many women feel when forced to see their colleagues' uncovered limbs. Let's start with the woman, Candice. Yes or no to hairy legs?
I actually don't mind. I don't mind a sort of hairy man, like a bit of a bear. I'm okay with it. I do not mind. I'm not surprised that the Japanese don't like it. It is one of the most aesthetic cultures I've ever experienced when I was in Japan.
Right.
Everything is beautiful. Everything is thoughtful. They also have the concept of the highly sensitive person, which nowhere else has. So, you know, someone who's very reactive to their environment. When I was on the Tokyo metro, I was coughing. Everyone around me was visibly wincing. And eventually someone gave me a sweet and a tissue.
Right.
And, yeah, because in Japan, even at coughing, you should wear a mask.
Bill, what do you think about hairy pins?
Well, I'm totally in favour of equality, and some women have hairy legs. So I don't think women can have it both ways.
Where do you draw the line? I mean, are you in favour of a hairy back?
I don't think you should go to work with no shirt on.
Yes, agreed.
But I'll tell you this. I was a Foreign Office Minister for 4 years. Japan, for a politician, is the best place in the world to deliver a speech, because part of the culture is Japanese people, all in the audience, will smile and nod vigorously at you.
Actively listening to what you're saying.
And, you know, politicians breed on self-confidence, and you think, God, I'm rocking it here.
You were definitely in Japan, you weren't in North Korea.
I was in Japan.
You would be aware if you'd known that. And have you ever worn shorts to work, Bill?
No.
Never?
No.
Not once?
No.
I'm wearing shorts right now.
It's a millennial thing. We don't mind it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, if you're wearing shorts or not, whatever you're wearing, however you want to comment, maybe you're not wearing anything, give me a shout, 0344 499 1000, and let me know your views on the issues of the day. Claire Muldoon, who's often on our debate desk, has expressed very strong opinions against my hairy legs in these heavily warm days recently. I've been doing the sort of sartorial equivalent of a mullet, really, where you have the shirt up top and then the shorts on the legs. Listen, thank you to Candice Holdsworth and to Bill Rammell. Really appreciate them being with us, and let me know your thoughts on what they've said. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. More to come in a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good evening. It's just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Peter Cardwell, and Mike Tapp, the Immigration Minister, has been sacked. He's put out a lengthy statement. We've given him a ring to see his reaction to that. He undermined Shabana Mahmood. He didn't play by the rules when it came to what she wanted him to do. She's the Home Secretary still, and this reshuffle continues. We'll get reaction from a Labour MP in just a minute. We'll also talk about PC Andrew Harper's family and the decision to have early release for two of his killers. We'll talk too about bus fares going down to £2 and on people being bribed, civil servants being given incentives, shall we say, to move to Manchester. And the debate about whether I should or should not show my hairy legs continues, which is perhaps not the most important issue that we're going to discuss this evening. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a WhatsApp text message. You can send me a voice note. We've had a few of those already. Keep the voice notes coming in, or you can send me, or you can dial the number, and we can get you on the air for a live discussion. 0344 499 1000. Lots to discuss between now and 10 o'clock. Stay with us here on Talk. Well, Bill Esterson is the Labour MP for Sefton Central. Bill, thank you for joining me on the programme. Good evening to you.
Hi. Hello, Peter. You've got me chuckling at the prospect of seeing your hairy legs, but I'm only because I'm not quite sure what to say about it.
You're welcome in studio anytime, Bill. I'm not sure we'll put you through that. One person who's also having a bad day is Mike Tapp, who has been sacked as Immigration Minister. Given his beef with Shabana Mahmood, do you think that was just inevitable that happened?
Yeah, I think so. You can't go breaking collective responsibility, and actually I see Joe White's been appointed. I think Joe will be excellent, by the way, so I think that's a very good appointment.
Yeah, it's interesting that Mike Tapp has said, I'm disappointed to be leaving government, but I have no regrets remaining loyal to Keir Starmer until the end. That speaks volumes, Bill.
Well, I'm not sure undermining the Home Secretary was being loyal to the Prime Minister, so I don't think that really stacks up from
okay.
Mike. Look, I've got a lot of time for Mike, but I think he was in the wrong there, and I think this is the right outcome.
Andy Burnham, the Prime Minister, says he wants an end to factionalism. He has appointed many people from his own faction. He has got rid of many Starmerites, 11 of them, from the Cabinet. We're also in a position where he sacked Mike Tapp for reasons that we've now discussed. Do you think factionalism is really at an end, especially when you look at the newest appointment to the House of Lords, who is Anas Sarwar, who was the person who originally called for Keir Starmer to go, to be replaced by Andy Burnham, who denied that he had any role in factionalism and getting rid of Keir Starmer, which a lot of people were very sceptical about?
Well, I don't accept the characterisation of factionalism, actually, Peter. I think every Prime Minister is going to appoint the team they want. When you have a change of Prime Minister, you're going to have a change of, especially Cabinet and some junior ministers. I think it's in that context that Andy Burnham's made the appointments that he has.
OK, I just want to play a couple of clips about what's happened during the day. We'll talk about PC Andrew Harper and what's happened on sentencing policy. That's a big issue. The Times reporting tonight that various prisons are wondering actually what is the policy, what are they going to do when they release these people. Aileen O'Connor spoke to our station earlier. She is the Police Federation representative for Thames Valley Police that PC Andrew Harper was a member of. Let's see what she told Kevin O'Sullivan.
Gut-wrenching is my initial reaction when I heard last night, when I was sent the Telegraph report. My heart went to my stomach, if I'm really honest with you, and that's no exaggeration. And I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm incredibly disappointed, and I speak for the voice of my membership across Thames Valley Police. And I actually think I'm fairly confident I can speak for cops up and down the country, because I also think they will equally as be frustrated and angry at the news and the prospects of these individuals being released early from a sentence.
The Prime Minister talked about this controversy as well. This is what Andy Burnham said earlier today.
I feel for the family it's an appalling crime that was committed. The main perpetrator will not be subject to any early release. Of course, others involved have potentially been identified, but I've spoken to the new Justice Secretary. We will review the policy together and make further statements in due course.
The Prime Minister also talked more generally about his policy of capping bus fares at £2. Let's have a little listen to this.
I will always be honest with the public. It's my style. This week, the three policies I've announced, ending rough sleeping, the bus cap we're announcing today, and the removal of VAT off electricity bills are all fully funded. And that's the way I will go. And people will say, well, how? I've reprioritised. The public's priority is reducing cost of living pressures. And that's what I'm doing. I'm taking a difficult look at some of the things that the government was committed to, digital ID being one example, and reprioritising. And I think that's what people would expect me to do coming into this job.
Thank you to Bill Esterson for continuing to join us. On the policy specifically, Bill, of this review of prisons policy, of sentencing, they passed the Sentencing Act last year, Labour voted for that. A Deputy Governor of a prison has told The Times this evening, we've been told to put planning on hold until it's clear what the new ministerial team's intentions are. Another source told The Times it's caused bedlam. What do you think? Shouldn't Andy Burnham just make up his mind on this?
Well, again, an incoming Prime Minister and incoming government is going to look at existing policy just as they're looking at existing cabinet members and reach their own conclusions. I think Andy's absolutely right in the light of what you were just playing there, to reconsider this policy. And my understanding of the policy was it wasn't supposed to apply for very serious offenders. Clearly, something's not quite right there, and this case highlights the need to review it. So I think it's a sensible thing for the Prime Minister and the new Justice Secretary to do.
Couldn't this have been anticipated when the original legislation was passed? Because that's what the government voted for. I know Andy Burnham wasn't a member of the government at that time, and he's every right to review these things. But when you have a Deputy Governor saying that there is bedlam and it is unclear what the government actually wants to do, they need to sort that out very soon, don't they, Bill?
Well, promised to look at it, and I think that's quite right. And I'm sure that the new Justice Secretary, Alex Norris, will have this as his top priority to do just that.
Tell me your thoughts on lowering bus fares to £2.
I think this is a good move. Yeah, for lots of people. I mean, look, I'll just tell you a story. I was at George Howarth's funeral on Monday, the former MP for Knowsley, which is
and a very good Northern Ireland minister. A very good Northern Ireland minister.
Absolutely, Peter, a lovely man. And the eulogy was given by Jack Straw, and who was his boss when they were both in government in the 90s and the early noughties. And Jack read out part of George's maiden speech where he talked about the extraordinarily high number of households in Knowsley that didn't have access to a car at the time. And whilst those numbers have changed a bit, there are still significant parts of the country, the Liverpool City region being one of them, where a lot of people don't have access to a car. So making it easier to travel by bus is a really, really big deal for a lot of people. But getting more people onto public transport helps all of us, doesn't it? Those of us who drive benefit if there's more road space because there are fewer vehicles on the road. So all round a very good policy, and I'm glad we've gone back to the £2 cap. I know the previous government had it until Keir Starmer came in.
I agree with you that it's a good policy. The question is how it's going to be paid for, because changing international climate donations into repayable loans is part of this. But the Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander, on Sky News this morning didn't seem to know how that would actually work. It's early days, of course, but she, I think, came a cropper on this when she was interviewed by Sky News. Let's have a look.
I don't want to interrupt, but there's just a couple of things I just want... Because you say there on the interest, I know that you're saying the details need to be worked out, but it feels like that is quite a fundamental one, because if you look at, to be completely honest, the West's track record of loaning money to developing nations, you can see why people might have anxiety about that, right? So do we know if there's going to be interest or not?
So this is quite standard to have loans for international climate finance. As I say, the detail will need to be worked out. We wanted to make the announcement today. It's a really big priority for the new Prime Minister Andy Burnham to help with the everyday cost of living.
Yeah.
And so,
I understand that.
As I said to you,
just trying to get the details of, because this is.
But Sophie, you will appreciate that I'm not going to sit in your studio and tell you how something will work when the detail hasn't yet been worked through.
Really sorry. I'm not.
But the point that I have made to you, and I will repeat, is that in order for loans to actually count towards your ODA budget, your Overseas Development Assistance budget, then the terms on which those loans are given do need to be reasonably favourable to the developing country. We're not wanting to fleece anyone here, and we actually want to maximise the development potential of this money that is available. And so it is in line with what a number of other countries do on international climate finance.
If I could just come in again.
But you'll forgive me.
No, Heidi,
I'm not going to give you the detail because I don't have the detail to give you.
Is she not giving the detail because she doesn't know the detail, Bill?
Well, I suspect it's very to have all the detail. But look, this again is about priorities, isn't it? Is the priority at the moment immediate changes to the cost of living and to enable people to travel more easily, or to sort out the loan system for international climate finance? Yeah, they're both important matters, but government is about priorities. There are scarce resources, and I think the way that Andy Burnham as Prime Minister and the government have hit the ground running shows that they recognise the serious nature of the cost of living crisis that people up and down the country face. We saw it with the cut-in of about £45 a year on average off energy bills.
And I agree with all of that, Bill.
We've got this £2 bus cut. Bus price.
I do think they get.
I think these are important matters, and I understand your question about how these are paid for, and they will have to answer those questions.
But I mean, taxes are going to rise, aren't they, Bill?
He's got to make his mark, and I think that's what he's been doing this week.
And that's fine, but taxes are going to go up, aren't they?
Well, I don't think that necessarily follows, Peter, but they're going to have to explain how this works, how things are funded. I mean, these are not neither the VAT cut nor the £2 cap on fares are huge spending commitments, but of course they will start to add up, and I think we will see the detail in the budget.
Do you think number 10 North is a gimmick?
No, I don't. I think actually, and I think it's not just about the North, I think it's about the whole country. It needs to be number 10 for the North, South, East and West, for Scotland and Wales as well, the point that the Prime Minister has made. I think it matters because if we are going to change the way that government operates, if we are going to improve delivery, speed, and you know a lot about this from your time in government, if we're going to speed up the delivery of government, we've got to change the way we work. And I think taking a significant part of how government operates out of London and setting up in Manchester as a start is a very, very important step.
Well, you're absolutely right, Bill.
In improving delivery.
Okay, you're absolutely right that delivery was an issue when I was in government. It is an issue now. It will continue to be an issue. But one thing that was all the time was a problem was where you had policies that had different departments that were one department owned a bit of it, the other department was part of another part of it. And the fact that I could cross the road and go and see somebody or lift the phone and say, can I come round in 15 minutes to see you about this because it was 2 streets away, was a really good way of getting things done. If someone's in Manchester, I'm not saying that Manchester doesn't have a role to play. You know, you could have number 10 Cornwall, you could have number 10 Glasgow if you wanted. The question is, if people aren't physically there, okay, we've got loads of technology. It's not the same as you know. This interview is not the same as if you're sitting opposite me. It's slightly different because you are on Zoom, and that's going to be the case for lots of different people when they're trying to run the country well.
Yeah, look, I think people pick up the phone to each other when they're both in London. So I don't think that the technology or lack of or lack of being able to have face-to-face meetings is necessarily a problem here. But there's got to be a change in the way that government operates. Otherwise, we're going to carry on with the kind of delays. I think talking to colleagues in government, and my select committee has seen this, by the way, as well, very much so. Why are things not happening more quickly when ministers are making decisions, when the government is passing laws? And as we were saying, it didn't start with the Keir Starmer government. This has been going on for a long time. And I think this is a very interesting attempt to break some of the logjam.
That's a fair point. Bill, thank you. There's Bill Esterson there, Labour MP for Sefton Central. He doesn't mind going up to Sefton near Liverpool every week or beyond. And thank you to him for that. What do you think about what he said there? 0344 499 1000. Al is in North Nantwich and he says, if Angela Rayner essentially resigned in disgrace for not paying tax on the housing issue whilst holding the job of Housing Secretary for the whole of the UK, surely the outcome of this can only be either dishonesty or incompetence. I suspect both. How can any future employer then hire her for the exact same role? This is beyond unbelievable, says Al. She's just Housing Secretary for England, but yes, the point stands. Trevor in Derbyshire says, do you think the French or some Eastern European, maybe Far Eastern countries have any spare cells they could rent out to us? Robert says, hi hairy legs. Thank you, Robert. Makes a difference from Cardi P, both of which are absolutely fine, by the way. I get called a heck of a lot worse. OK, we have a lack of prison space, says Robert, and a problem of drugs, etc. in our prisons, mostly probably out of boredom. So why don't we get the inmates building new prisons as part of their sentence? That way they get skills and give back to society. Thanks to this texter who says, so many big problems in the UK and rough sleeping just isn't up there. It's not even on the same page. This is another joke of politicians having a go. Embarrassing doesn't get close to describing this. I'm afraid I disagree with that. I think if rough sleeping can be dealt with, that is something that we should do. We can't solve every problem. We need to solve many, many problems, but rough sleeping is one that I feel very, very strongly about, having worked on it in government. It is dreadful, and getting a roof over someone's head and trying to sort out people's problems. There are very few people who are rough sleeping who don't have many, many other problems in their life, and that is something that I feel very strongly about. Davina says, very sad what happened to PC Harper, but this also happens to people who don't work in the front line. Do they not count? With the greatest of respect to PC Harper. Well, lots to discuss on that. Deborah says, here's my take on Burnham. He's offering little gestures to pull people in, the Pied Piper all over again, lure the rats, do the job, then face a government that refuses to honour its promises. And just like the tail, he took his revenge and claimed his own reward. That's my read on it. Don't be taken in by Burnham or this Labour government. They're all aligned in dragging this country down, says Deborah, who also sent me a very nice message about the programme. So I appreciate that, Deborah. We will get to some of your calls in just a second. Please do give me a ring, 0344 499 1000. We'll get to those in just a second. So stay with us here on Talk.
I thought it was disgraceful, and you know, cabinet ministers are allowed to joke about things, but to joke about the fact that we've released 50,000 prisoners from jails under the Labour government since they came to power, I think is extraordinary, and I think it just reveals the contempt that there is. Like, Labour ministers just don't think that that matters. I think it's disgusting, and you can only imagine how PC Andrew Harper's family feel about that.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Mike Tapp has left government. He is not the Immigration Minister anymore. He has told me that he can't do an interview this evening because, mate, I've got beers and a curry to get through. After recess, I'll be around. So hopefully he will come on the show after recess. But he has gone as Immigration Minister. And yeah, it's an interesting one because Joe White, I think, is the new Immigration Minister. Let me just check my email to see if we've got an official word of that from number 10. I don't see it so far, but we will see what we can see on all of that. And as soon as they let us know, I will let you know. There will not be a moment between me being told and you being told, let me tell you. Anne is in Sussex and wants to give her opinion on prisoners being released early, including those killers of PC Andrew Harper. His family are very, very annoyed about it, as you can imagine, a lot of our viewers and listeners, and I am very annoyed about it. Anne, it's good to talk to you. What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, Peter, I find it unbelievable that anyone in government should think it's okay to release these villains who've done what they've done.
And that is the law. That is what the Sentencing Act does, Anne, because there just isn't the space in the prisons.
Well, there might be the space in the prisons if they returned the foreign prisoners at the countries that they came from. We took the guy from Australia that nobody wants here because he was a British citizen, and we took him back. Okay, the world laughs at us because we're soft and we do the things that other countries won't do. They look after their own nations. But what I also added to my concern about all this is that I've sat at many meetings over the past 20 years, and I remember when they all came to see us from the Home Office, the probation service. They're going to dismantle it and change it, which they did, and many of the experienced probation officers left, as happens whenever these large corporations are changed.
Well, the problem is, as you correctly identify, that so many people who have a lot of experience, a lot of expertise say, do you know what, I'll maybe leave a few years early, I'll take a bit of a package, or I'll get the, you know, they're an expensive person because they've been there for a long time, and then they bring in cheaper, younger, less experienced people.
Yeah, and they know that it won't work. They know what does work, so what do? They decide we're getting out.
Yeah.
What is going to happen with all the reorganisation of local government?
Well, that's another whole point as well. And it's interesting because prison officers who've been ordered to pause plans for the early release in September have described the scheme as deplorable. It's sparked chaos in jails across England and Wales. Officials scrambling to work out prison release for thousands of inmates who are due to become eligible. And we have a Deputy Governor who's told The Times this evening, we've been told to put planning on hold until it's clear what the new ministerial team's intentions are. Another source says it has caused bedlam.
Of course. And I think everything is done on the hoof. So it's something, we've got a bright idea. We'll do this, we'll change that. Nobody thinks about the long-term implications. I can easily lose the reason that I rang you, because what happens is we have people sitting on committees and boards who just nod and don't ask the questions. They agree with the decisions that are made, and I've seen that enough over the years. But I'm really worried because there are people in prison who shouldn't be there. The easy ones.
Yes.
They keep them in prison while they're releasing the villains. Where is the pride in this country? Where is anyone who really says, we're here for this nation? The world is laughing at us, Peter.
I think you're right, Anne. I think those are very, very good points, Anne. Thank you, Anne in Sussex. Good to hear from you again, Anne, as well. Steve says, hi, Peter. It all basically boils down to the fact we can no longer trust our politicians to get it right. Leslie says, surely before the government can make pronouncements on cutting VAT and electricity and £2 bus fares, they would know where the money is coming from. I really think the current ministers lack experience. None of them has had a proper job. Burnham, as I said yesterday, will be gone by December. Michelle says this guy is an imposter, a charlatan injected into office by the state. I think his pausing of the prisoner release is yet another psyop to try to make this clown more likeable. They really will use anything. You've got to see through this. Jackie says, well done, Candace, earlier on. You get it. Bill is out of touch with what the people think and about this whole total mess of the whole criminal justice system. Commit any crime, then do the time. Prison should not be a luxury. Bill needs to get connected to reality. Sue says, says, having grown up in a Devon village where you're lucky if you saw one bus a day, I would prefer that the money was spent in enforcing payment from the people who actually use the buses, bring back conductors and enforce payment and good behaviour. Jackie says, considering the serious and dangerous problems in the country, why did the public decide that devolution was the priority? I think that's a really good point. I don't think more devolution and more civil servants in the north of England necessarily makes the government work. On the prisons aspect as well and crime, lots of people getting in touch, including James from London. James, you're on the air. What would you like to say?
Hello, I just wanted to say you were going about prison overcrowding, and
yes.
I agree with your previous caller, Anne, saying, yes, get rid of the foreign prisoners. I mean, that's completely obvious. In the meantime, everything's very short-termism at the moment. For the prisons that we're talking about, we need massive infrastructure. It's not just the concrete blocks, it's where it is, the water services, the plumbing, all that stuff. That's what I do. In the meantime, for the most heinous crimes, why don't we speak to Nabil Bukele in El Salvador? He's got purpose-made prisons already there.
And Trump has sent many people to those prisons. Is that really what we want? I mean, the conditions in those prisons are dreadful.
Frankly, I think they deserve it. I mean, for the most heinous crimes, I frankly don't care how they live for the rest of their lives. It's not my problem.
There are people.
And if we can't punish them correctly, let someone else do it. But what effectively, what is the Rwanda plan? Exactly the same thing.
So, James, there's an interesting distinction between people who can be rehabilitated and people who can't. There are some people who will say, I've done something wrong, I regret it, help me in prison to learn a skill or to get qualifications. They'll come out, they'll be better citizens. Now, that's a small number of people, but there are some of them. There are people
I'm not saying send a bird.
No, I get that, and that's just hold on a sec, James, because that's my question. Yeah. The second part of that is, I totally agree with you. There are some people who are just evil. There are some people who are just evil. They're totally irredeemable. They'll never be rehabilitated. It wouldn't bother me for a second if they spend the rest of their lives in prison. But most people are going to get out. Wouldn't it brutalise them to send them to El Salvador?
Well, I mean, to be perfectly fair, the reason I think this is I've read through the report from Rupert Lowe. In the rate, I've read the
rape gangs report. Yeah,
and some of the things I've heard in there, I mean, they need to go. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
they need to go. I mean, some of the things in there is the most heinous, evil things I've ever heard in my life. And frankly, I don't care.
Okay.
I do not care. That's my point. And I think in the meantime, because we're so short-termist, we need to build the bigger prisons. We need the infrastructure, but it's not going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's going to take 5-10 years.
It's a very good.
In the meantime, if you're going to literally do the most heinous crimes you could possibly imagine, you're going to CCOP. See you later. I don't care.
James, listen, thank you for your thoughts. Appreciate that. That's James in London there. Grant in Leicestershire says, hi, Peter, regarding prisons. As a former army person, I have no sympathy for anyone in prison. The accommodation afforded to criminals in the UK is practically Holiday Inn level compared to the appalling conditions the squaddies have to endure. You could quadruple the bed spaces in prison. It's supposed to be a punishment, not a holiday. No doubt the ECHR strikes again. Testy says, Candace's face when Bill Rammell was talking was absolutely priceless. Karen says, evening, Peter, great show. I'm all for the bus fare being capped at £2. I use the bus every day, and when the fares were capped at £3, it meant £360 a year more for me, says Kaz in Staffordshire. I'm delighted to hear that, Karen. Kaz, I think it's a good policy. The question is, where does the money come from? Graham says, with the additional job losses from increasing taxes and companies going bust, at least people will only pay £2 to get to the job centre on the bus. Zarina says, when a crime is committed, and if it is reported, it quite often does not get investigated and a resolution is not forthcoming. I've been a victim of crime. It cost me thousands. Many people I know just do not report it anymore. It's such a sad state of affairs. Serena, I'm sorry to hear you've been a victim of crime. It is not a nice thing at all. I've been a victim of crime as well, and it is it's a very difficult thing to deal with, no matter how severe that crime is. We'll talk in just a second about this £2 on bus fares, how many people it's going to affect, like Kaz, and where the money's going to come from, what it's all going to mean, especially for people who take buses every single day. There are, as Bill Rammell said, 43% of people take a bus once a week. It is the biggest form of public transport in this country. Forget all those people going on and on and on and on, usually journalists in the southeast of London, about trains. Buses are where it's at when it comes to public transport. We'll speak to the travel correspondent of The Telegraph, Simon Calder, in just a minute. We'll get your thoughts too, particularly on this PC Harper story. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thank you to everybody who has been in touch, including people who are asking questions about my hairy legs. We will, a little bit later on in the programme, talk to Claire Muldoon about whether it is ever acceptable for people to have hairy legs in the office. One man who I'm fairly sure I've seen in a pair of shorts is Simon Calder, the travel correspondent of The Telegraph, who joins me now on the bus fares and indeed parking fines. Simon, what is your view on people having hairy legs in the office? Because the Japanese are not happy about it, and you'll be familiar with that culture, a bit different to our own, of course.
Yeah, I can absolutely see they wouldn't be happy with it. They're not happy, incidentally, with tattoos. There's a number of hotels where they simply will not let you stay if you have been tattooed.
Wow.
I'm not going to ask about where your tattoos are or what they are. But
I imagine you with a big sort of anchor across your chest.
Look, I think it's wonderful wearing shorts in the office, but the Japanese do things differently, and that's entirely up to them. But I think anything that you feel comfortable with has to be a good thing, as long as it's clean and that you look sort of fairly respectable. But casual rather than smart casual is very good for me. As you can tell, I'm just sitting in the garden enjoying the last of the summer light.
You're on a rare visit to the UK, Simon. Tell me your thoughts on the buses, because you, of course, are a great bus traveller, and trains are important too, but buses carry far more people. Capping it at £2, just talk us through the history of this, because it was £2, then £3, but actually there are parts of the country where I think, in London, I think it's £1.75 for a bus.
Yes, and it's so complicated. The person, bizarrely, who came up with the best bus strategy, and I don't often say this, was Boris Johnson. He had a really smart idea in 2021. It was going to be funded with billions of pounds. The whole idea was that they would transform bus transport, because at the moment, I mean, in America, they very rudely call it the loser cruiser. And I'm traveling all the time on buses, fantastic men and women operating them, and it's a great service. And certainly you go on routes which are covered by this, such as going from Malton in Yorkshire across to Whitby, one of the world's great bus journeys. Anyway, they were £2, then they went back to £3. Then now for the whole of next year, they're coming down to £2.
And is this just England? Is this just England? What about Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland?
Yeah, they all have their own different models. I mean, generally quite similar. In Scotland, basically, if you're a young person, I think anything up to 21, you don't pay for bus travel. And bizarrely, since so many older people don't pay for bus travel, you, I think, Peter, would be, I know you are a young man, but you would be probably the only person on a typical bus who was actually paying anything.
In Northern Ireland, if you're over 60, you get, as I'm sure you're aware, the Smart Pass. And I've often been sitting in train carriages thinking, I'm the only person who's paid for this. Everybody else who's over 60 is all travelling on their Smart Pass.
And I'm all in favour of people being mobile, young people, old people,
of course.
Anybody. This is great, but of course it has to be funded. And frankly, look, with the pound I have saved, I am not going to be able, and I checked this last week, I'm not going to be able to buy a cup of tea anywhere in Doncaster bus station, which is where I was, from a leading chain of retailers. So I think it's neither here nor there. It's going to cost the bus industry a bit more. Look, ideally, it will persuade some people maybe to switch from their cars to the buses, but you need reliability above all. And the most exciting thing which is happening, sorry, I've got a very noisy garden suddenly. Most exciting thing which is happening is actually a project called Mini Switzerland in the Peak District. They are trying to create the sort of integrated transport, buses, trains, at reasonable fares, but absolutely reliable and regular, in order to say, look, they do this in Switzerland and it's great and we can do it here. That's very exciting. Otherwise, this is just, a bit of fluff, which is, I guess, a good announcement to get out on the 6 a.m. on the day after you've taken over, to get people talking about something other than how are you going to fund these things, because ultimately it's not a huge amount of money.
It's interesting you mentioned Switzerland there, because I remember being in Geneva in Switzerland and hearing first in French, then in German and then in English. They said they sincerely apologised because the train was running 1 minute late. Tell me about this £24,000 a council has made on parking fines in a single street, Simon.
Now, look, this is actually very much on the same sort of page. So this is a street, St Stephen's Road, I believe, in Bournemouth, where the local council has been fining people at very, very high fees. I'm sure you've never had a parking ticket. I remember
I certainly have.
The first one I got cost me £2.
Wow. Why didn't you take the bus?
And this was some time ago. But I mean, we are seeing fines of up to £170 mentioned, and that is, at that sort of level, that is kind of very, very punitive. But the government is actually actively looking at this, because where strangers coming to town and parking is a real problem, if you have, and word gets around, very high penalties for parking, then people will think twice, and they might even think, oh, let's go to the seaside, let's go to Bournemouth by bus, and that would be in general a good thing for the residents. So it's a kind of, you want to come to Bournemouth, you follow our rules, otherwise you are going to be paying a fortune. And we could see the same thing rolled out in Blackpool and Brighton.
OK, Simon, thank you very much indeed. That is Simon. Oh, Simon, actually, just before you go, what's going on with that window behind you?
Oh, crikey. Yes. Look, that does look a bit like a something from...
Have you got a cannabis farm?
Vision. No, that's actually blackout curtain for my daughter, who works shifts, and therefore she has to have a blackout curtain. So
I used to.
Thank you for asking.
I used to do shifts too. I used to work overnight, and that's a very, very good idea. I'm glad you're not running a cannabis farm, Simon. Which of course we wouldn't.
Although, thanks to the idea.
Right.
I'll get the supplies from you.
I think you're probably not going to get too much cannabis from me. But Simon, appreciate your time this evening. Thank you very much indeed. Breaking news. Al Cairns has rejected a role in government. So this is the former Armed Forces Minister, Al Cairns, who is determined to stay on the back benches. He has rejected a role in government. This reshuffle is continuing. And actually on Joe White, who is the new immigration minister. She is the new immigration minister, and it has been, some footage has come to us. In fact, it's been tweeted out by Robert Jenrick, who is the Treasury spokesman for Reform UK, and she was in a council meeting in her constituency. The new immigration minister, Joe White, she has replaced Mike Tapp. The new immigration minister said this.
I don't care who we talk about. My priority. Yes, okay.
I don't care if we stop the boats, says Joe White, who is the new immigration minister. That is verified footage of a council meeting in her constituency where she was asked about this particular issue, and the new immigration minister, the person who's replacing Mike Tapp, has said, I don't care if we stop the boats. Well, I know quite a few people, quite a few thousand people actually, who care if we stop the boats. They're called the viewers and listeners of Talk. And if you have a view on what Joe White has said, the new immigration minister who does not care if we stop the boats, what do you think of that? 0344 499 1000. We're going to talk about another story in a second, about the NHS Trust facing unprecedented corporate manslaughter inquiry. This is all to do with Valdo Calocane and the 3 people he murdered. Roy Lilly is a former NHS Trust chairman and joins us in a second. Give me your reaction to all the stories we're talking about this evening. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
I thought it was disgraceful, and you know, cabinet ministers are allowed to joke about things, but to joke about the fact that we've released 50,000 prisoners from jails under the Labour government since they came to power, I think is extraordinary, and I think it just reveals the contempt that there is. Like, Labour ministers just don't think that that matters. I think it's disgusting, and you can only imagine how PC Andrew Harper's family feel about that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to everybody who has been in touch, and there's quite a lot of discussion on the big issues, including Number 10 North. Lorraine says Burnham has no mandate to create a Number 10 in Manchester. The official office of the Prime Minister is Downing Street, and Burnham needs to show respect. Mayors control Manchester. This is a gimmick that was not on the manifesto, and it has not been costed. The country is up to its neck in debt. It will cost millions, and the only people who will benefit are the civil servants with their paychecks and perks, while Andy gets to work from home. Just highlights schoolboy politics and is contemptible. We also have the breaking news that a couple of people have refused. Well, Mike Tapp, the immigration minister, has been sacked, and Al Carnes, the former Armed Forces Minister, has refused a role in government. We also know that Joe White, who is the new Immigration Minister, she was at a meeting with residents who about a migrant HMO on their road. It was a meeting she organised with the council, and we have the new Immigration Minister at the Home Office who said this.
I don't care who we talk about. My priority Yeah. Yes, okay. So I don't want.
I don't care if we stop the boats. That is the Bassett Law MP, Jo White, who has said that she doesn't care if they stop the boats. She is now the Immigration Minister in charge of that policy. We're going to put a call into the Home Office right now and ask them if the new Immigration Minister does want to stop the boats, yes or no. Hopefully we'll get a reaction from that. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. I want to talk as well about another big story this evening, and this is about the Health Trust in relation to Valdo Calocane. He was the murderer. He murdered 3 people, and we know that there is now a corporate manslaughter inquiry into that. Let me just find the information, which seems to be eluding me. Just give me a second here. Yes, here we are. Nottinghamshire Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust, which discharged Valdo Calocane despite his history of violence and refusal to take medication, has been placed under criminal inquiry. Now, corporate manslaughter, which carries the penalty of unlimited fines, involves allegations of serious failings resulting in a breach of duty of care. Detectives have informed the trust bosses and told them to preserve all records related to the June 2023 attacks. The trust has said that it will cooperate with the inquiry. Well, Roy Lilly is a former NHS Trust chairman himself. Roy, is this a good idea in terms of accountability? Is it fair? How will it change things?
Peter, good evening.
Good evening.
Look, I want to sort of couch my remarks with the greatest of respect for the families involved, because this is obviously very important to them, and I don't want to say anything that in any sense would be interpreted as upsetting them or being...
And I totally get that, Roy. And just before we go on, we will hear Valdo Calocane's name a number of times. Let's remind ourselves of who he murdered. Grace O'Malley Kumar, Barnaby Webber, 19-year-old students, and Ian Coates, a school caretaker nearing retirement.
Yes, thank you for that, Peter. So looking at this entirely objectively from a management point of view, a corporate manslaughter is an extremely complicated thing and very difficult, really, to get to secure a prosecution in court. So we need to bear in mind that this is at the moment an investigation to see if sufficient evidence can be collected to persuade the Crown Prosecution Service that there's proof beyond reasonable doubt. The difficulty is trying to prove that the trust had a duty of care to other people, to outside the people in the public domain. Now, Calocane was discharged from the trust's care under Section 3 of the Mental Health Act because the clinicians looking after him, responsible for his care, felt there was nothing more that they could do, and he was discharged into the community. Now, that was 9 months before this incident happened. So the question will turn on whether or not 9 months previously the trust had a duty of care in effectively the discharge from their care. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I mean, mental health is something that I have studied, and I have run mental health services. There is a previous case which is well known in mental health services, which is Palmer versus the Tees Health Authority. And I just read the paragraph. A psychiatric patient murdered a child after failings in his management, but the Court of Appeal held that the health authority did not owe a duty to an unidentified member of the public who is not part of a sufficiently identifiable group at risk. Now, that's really important. So what we got here is a person who murdered people, but did the trust have an identifiable group that they were sufficiently responsible for?
Okay.
Now, that's as I say, the lawyers will be able to interpret that, but these are the kind of things that people who run mental health services are very aware of. My view is that I think, I mean, because of the high public interest in this, it's possible there will be a prosecution. whether or not the trust owed a duty of care and failed to protect the public in the passing of that amount of time, it will be for the courts to decide. There is, in my view, a better way of proceeding with this, which is rather odd. It's about like Al Capone not being arrested for murder, but being done for income tax, where under Section 3 of the Health and Safety at Work Act, it might ultimately be legally easier and can cover risks created for the members of the public and does not require proof that a breach actually caused a death. So under the Health and Safety at Work Act, the trust might be liable for a breach of duty of care to the public. These are complicated legal issues. I understand absolutely how the families must feel, but it's not a slam dunk that because the police are investigating that the Crown Prosecution Service will proceed, or even if the proceedings will be successful.
Yeah, it's interesting as well that so many people want answers. They want people to have some form of accountability for this. Faldo Callaghan has some accountability for it. That's not going to bring back the 3 people he murdered. There were clearly systematic failures here, but we know that systems are people. People make decisions, and so many of those decisions went very, very wrong here.
Yes, the issue is really around the difficulties with the Mental Health Act. Hospitals are not prisons, and hospitals are always very reluctant to effectively lock people up and oblige people to take treatment and what have you. There's been a review of the Mental Health Act. There's been several reviews. My view is that it's really difficult, on the one hand, to approach a person with serious mental health problems clinically, and on the other hand, looking at them effectively, in inverted commas, criminally as well. It's a very fine balance, and clinicians who work at the high end of psychiatry, as this would have been, are often faced with great difficulties. Can you keep someone locked up effectively because they may not take their medication? And if they go and they don't take their medication and they disappear, it's very hard for the community psychiatric workers to track them down and trace them. You can't tag them in a way that we might tag a criminal. The whole Mental Health Act puts both the public and NHS managers in a very difficult position, and even more so clinicians. This is not an easy thing to unpick.
Roy, thank you. That is Roy Lilly there, the former NHS Trust chairman, and this is on the news that the relevant NHS Trust is facing an unprecedented corporate manslaughter inquiry. Should they face that? What do you think? 0344 499 1000. Mal in Birmingham says it was Andy Burnham who dragged the BBC to Salford at great expense. Now the BBC are having to make cuts of £600 million, losing 2,000 jobs. He certainly encouraged it, but it was the BBC's decision themselves. But Mal, a very good point there. Good evening, Peter, says this texter. What is it with this Labour lot and the 5% VAT cut in electricity? It will save us £45 a year, less than £1 a week. The contempt these people show us taxpayers is ridiculous. That is Mike from Abbeville. Graham in Bushy says, can men claim harassment for women with hairy armpits when they wear sleeveless dresses? Says Graham in Bushy. I don't think they can, is my thought on that. James in Devon says low-wage earners, single mums and people on benefits are held hostage and milked by credit card companies, charging over 30% interest. This needs to be stopped, says James in Devon. Joe in Willoughby in East Yorkshire says, all this talk, let me start again. Hi, Peter. All this talk of cost of living and bus fares is smoke and mirrors and a distraction from the elephant in the room, immigration, which Andy Burnham has not even acknowledged since his coronation. It is the reason why our country is financially on its knees and must be addressed as a matter of urgency, or are we doomed? Great show, Peter. Show us your legs, says Joe. OK, well, on the matter of immigration, let's just remind ourselves what the new Immigration Minister, Jo White, thinks about stopping the boats. This is what she said.
I don't care who stops the boat. My priority. My priority. Yes, okay.
The new Immigration Minister has said to a council meeting that she convened, that she doesn't care if they stop the boats. We've gone to the Home Office, we've asked them on the phone, they're getting back to us, and we will find out what the new Immigration Minister, Jo White, actually thinks. On number 10 North, Catha says, what a load of claptrap. It doesn't matter where all the Muppets are. It's what they do. It's common sense to have teams close by and efficiencies of scale rather than paying for more homes and expenses. Another texter says, if the country feels better, it will do better. We know that confidence is a factor in economic growth, so maybe the small feel-good things Burnham is doing will add up to more than the sum of their parts. And D in Chesterfield says, Peter, please stop with the hairy legs. It reminds me too much of the Blokish podcast featuring Prince Harry recently when he was describing his manscaping, as if we haven't heard enough about his regions. Haven't you got a good cat story to tell us, says D in Chesterfield? I always have good cat stories, wonderful cat stories, so many of them. But we are talking about hairy legs tonight, and Claire Muldoon is going to come on and tell us her thoughts on it. Graham in Bushy has said, can we check out whose legs are hairier, yours or Claire Muldoon's? My money is on Claire. Graham, if you want to ask Claire Muldoon that, feel free to ring in when she's on. I would then take cover. If I were you, I would duck. Michael's in Sunderland and has thoughts on early prison releases. Michael, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hi, Peter. First of all, I just think the sentencing is wrong. You take that latest one, that grooming gang fella, Shabar Ahmed.
Yes, Shabar Ahmed. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. He got 2 different sentences, 22 years and 19. They didn't run concurrent. He did them both at the same time. He only done 14. So
he was released after 13 years. He was released after 13 years, and then Pakistan said they won't take him.
Yeah, exactly. So the sentencing is ridiculous in the first place. In that case, why didn't they give him a 60-year sentence? Because that's what the poor girls are going to have. Because some of them are only 12-year-old. Well, like I say, if it's going to be too expensive to build prisons, right, and because of the population in this country's gone up, so obviously the crime rate's going up, why don't we start changing the law? And I know it's going to be controversial, but because of things that's happened in the last 10 years in particular, bring the death sentence back, right, for anybody who does any harm to any children, murderers, child abuse, drug dealers, terrorists, rapists.
Do you think that'll put them off, Michael? Because I don't think that I am not for the death penalty. I don't think it'll put people off. I don't think it'll be a deterrent.
Well, I tell you what, it'll be a start, won't it? It'll get rid of the prison population down and it'll make the streets a bit safer rather than letting people out after 14 years or rapists out after how many years and terrorists after whatever years. Never mind the foreigners that we've got in here, in this country, who's coming over on the boat. Peter, we've got to make a stance. We've got to start doing something now. And if you mentioned, reform probably will.
You mentioned the people coming across in the boats. What do you think of the new Immigration Minister, Jo White, who says she doesn't care about stopping the boats?
Why, she should be kicked out. It's the same as them. What they do joking on about prisoners. Oh, he wants to let them all out. We're going to see the same in September. Ferraris, champagne, popping the lot, all of it.
Okay.
It's a joke, Peter. We need to do something in this country for my grandson who's only 6.
Thank you very much indeed, Michael in Sunderland. Let's hear a voice note from Elisa.
Peter, the news is so depressing. Everything seems to be broken. Our prison system, our judiciary, law and order, borders, health, everything is down the abyss. We're going to have to see your legs because you're going to have to cheer us up.
Would that cheer you up, or would that just send you into the abyss too? We will discuss the hairy legs, not just mine, but hairy legs in general, in the next hour. Claire Muldoon will be with us for that. I want your comments on it too. Al Carnes, the former Armed Forces Minister, says he had a good conversation with the Chief Whip where she offered him a return to government after careful thought. He declined with respect and with thanks. We'll keep talking about that. Kevin Foster, the former Immigration Minister, will reflect on the comments of his successor who doesn't want to stop the boats.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It's just gone 9 o'clock. This is the Evening Exchange. I'm Peter Cardwell, and we've had the appointment of Joe White as Immigration Minister in the Home Office. One of her predecessors, Kevin Foster, will join me because she has said to a meeting, it's been uncovered by Reform UK, they're putting it out this evening, it's a genuine recording, saying that she doesn't care if they stop the boats. What do you think about that? Another big Home Affairs story about PC Andrew Harper and the fact that his murderers will be released from prison after 6.5 years, or will they? Because prisons this evening, governors are telling the Times newspaper and other journalists as well that they are in a state of chaos because the government cannot make up its mind about what it wants to do on sentencing policy. We'll also talk about Number 10 North and the civil servants who are being given big inducements of your money, taxpayers' money, to move up there. And the Japanese are not happy with men showing their hairy legs. I promise you, this is a story, and we will be discussing it with Claire Muldoon, who is no fan of my hairy legs. There are various people asking me to show them, some people telling me not to show them. You decide. 0344 499 1000. You can text me at 722 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can also, that's on Twitter, on Instagram, it's Cardwell Peter. You can send me a WhatsApp voice note. You can send me a WhatsApp text message, or give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. Stay with us here on Talk. Well, there have been a number of developments this evening when it comes to the reshuffle. Al Carnes, the former Armed Forces Minister, has said that he's been offered a job in government but is not taking one. Mike Tapp, the Immigration Minister, is going. He has been sacked. Also, Joe White, the MP for Bassetlaw, has become Immigration Minister. Quick as a flash, Reform UK have put out a clip of her saying that she doesn't want the small boats to be dealt with, or she doesn't care if they're dealt with. Let's hear what she said.
I don't care who it's all about. My priority. Yes, okay.
Thank you very much indeed to everybody who's been in touch about that. We will get to more of that, but she has said that she doesn't care if the small boats, they're not her priority. A former Immigration Minister and former Conservative MP for Torbay is Kevin Foster, who joins me now. Kevin, what do you make of this?
Pretty extraordinary development to see someone who only a few weeks back was being cited for saying, and I think with residents, I think she was meeting people in her constituency, you know, this isn't like some sort of half comical remark said over a drink or something. This is being said to someone, I think, challenging her on this issue. I don't care if we stop the boats. And now she's one of the people tasked with doing just that. So that instantly raises questions. And a bit like bus fares, we're hearing the government say a lot about, oh, well, the numbers are down this year. Well, yeah, that's only because they shot up last year and in 2024. So, you know, there's still a lot of work to be done on this area. And it's rather odd to hear someone say that 1 week and then find themselves actually the minister who should care about it, and actually it'll be probably the thing that absolutely dominates their time, now suddenly in office with that post having expressed that view.
We've asked the Home Office for a statement on this. We've contacted them this evening because when you have an Immigration Minister who appears to disagree with a completely fundamental policy to the department she's working in, I mean, Mike Tapp, for example, was her predecessor, is her predecessor as Immigration Minister. He undermined Shabana Mahmood. It was felt that he had to go. He wasn't following her instructions. He was more loyal to Keir Starmer. If he was sacked essentially because he wasn't playing ball. If you have his replacement as Immigration Minister who also isn't playing ball or is on the record in her heart of hearts saying that she doesn't agree with the policy of trying to deal with the boats, what implication does that have for Shabana Mahmood? She must be rolling her eyes and very, very annoyed at the fact that she's now got another Immigration Minister who doesn't agree with her approach.
Well, I suspect she will be, because, you know, they can have enough problems trying to convince Labour backbenchers to vote for the legislation necessary to deal with the small boats crisis. And, you know, I don't think some of what Labour's proposing goes far enough. But even with what they're proposing, they're going to already be having to look at how they face down a backbench rebellion on this. And in some cases, they may well find themselves having to ask Conservative and Reform MPs to vote with the government against certain backbench amendments to try and stop anything coming through being watered down. And, you know, potentially you've got a backbencher who this isn't really what they got elected to do, and then hearing that it's not actually, neither did the Immigration Minister. They didn't particularly get elected to do this, and they don't care about it either. I will, though, spare a quick thought for Mike Tapp, because anyone who takes on the immigration brief, it is a demanding one. It is one that takes up a lot of time and does personally drain you. So on a personal level, I wish him all the best. And I suspect his performance or otherwise as the actual minister is probably less important in what happened compared to his view tweeted out the other week that there should be a general election if there was a change of leader. I suspect it's his loyalty to Keir Starmer that's more cost him than his performance in the job.
Small boat crossings have gone down under Labour. You will no doubt say that that's Tory policy being finally enacted.
Well, but they went up last year.
Yeah, but they've gone down under Labour overall, and they've gone down this year, and we've had the first people coming in so far at the moment. It's still a problem. It's definitely still a problem.
Yeah.
When Joe White comes in tomorrow morning and is told this is a huge problem, this is your #1 priority to stop that, do you think she's? I mean, what do you think Number 10 will be thinking at the moment? Shouldn't they have at least Googled her on this issue?
Well, absolutely. It's worth noting, Peter, actually, the numbers are running at about where they were back in 2023 in terms of...
I mean, they peaked in 2022, didn't they? 46,000 people arriving.
They did, and then they dropped down to significantly the next year. They then went up in 24. They then went up to about 45,000 last year, and now they've started to come back down roughly to where they were back in 2023. If you look at year to year arrivals by date. So it's worth saying that, yes, they have come down from last year, but it's still roughly where things were in 23. And most in the public weren't very happy in 2023 with the level of arrivals. Yes.
Which of course, Rishi Sunak said he wanted to stop completely. That wasn't going to happen, but that's history. The point is the future and what Labour does right now. I wonder if I can ask you about another Home Affairs issue as a former Home Office Minister. This is more to do with the Ministry of Justice and sentencing policy. But when it comes to Andrew Harper and the fact that that very, very brave police constable dreadfully murdered, the fact that those two people's sentence was reduced and they were due to be released after 6.5 years. The point is that the government is having a review at the moment. Prison governors are saying it's chaos. They don't know what they're meant to be doing. What counsel would you give to the government to say, sort this out?
Well, the counsel I give to the government is police officers have to put their lives on the line every day dealing with dangerous situations. You know, they step forward when the rest of us step back. And if you look back at what happened to Andrew Harper, an absolutely horrific case where I think many people would already question the outcome of the criminal justice system, and I accept that obviously trials come to the conclusions they do. You know, I do respect the independence of the courts on that. To then find that after 6.5 years, and you know, these were two guys who were literally laughing at cameras, if I recall correctly, when they were being taken to a prison van. You know, we've got police officers out and about need to know, and for law enforcement to work, that if people attack them, if people do things like what happened to Andrew Harper, that they will spend a significant period of time in prison. And particularly given that our police works by consent. You know, they do not carry firearms routinely. They do not do, like, for example, in the United States, many incidents when police officers are threatened would result in the drawing of a weapon and potentially the use of lethal force. You know, we do have that proud tradition here in the UK of not routinely arming our police. But if the courts don't then protect them and the criminal justice system doesn't then make sure appropriate sanctions are in place, then that undermines the entire role of policing in this country and puts police officers at additional danger. My counsel to the Home Secretary would be quite simple about talking to the Justice Secretary about making sure those who've committed those sorts of offences are not eligible for early release, reviewing what the thresholds are, because we've already seen the case at Manchester Airport where there's been difficulties with securing convictions for quite extreme violence against the police in terms of the sort of level people might have expected the convictions to be secured, and making sure that the Justice Department and Home Office work together to ensure law and order can be enforced in this country. Because if the police are vulnerable and are not backed up by the courts, then that means they will potentially be more likely to back off and not feel able to engage in situations where for all of our safety, we need them to.
Kevin, thank you. Appreciate that. That is Kevin Foster there. We've got a voice note on Joe White. This is the new Immigration Minister who does not see it as a priority, doesn't care if the boats are stopped. Sally has sent this voice note.
So Joe White doesn't care about stopping the boats. There you go. She's shown her hand. That tells you all you need to know. She does not care about how much money it's costing this country. She does not care about the safety of women and girls. She does not care about the communities that these people are decimating. They don't care. None of them care. And I'm wondering, is it ideology? But actually, I don't think it is. I just think they're stupid. I think these people are as thick as a pig.
Thank you, Sally, and thank you for the person who put the bleep in at the end there, keeping us on the right side of Ofcom. Chris says, Cardi P, it's no surprise that Joe White does not want to stop the boats. It's socialist for you. Islamism and socialism are very, very strange bedfellows indeed. However, it'll be too late when they all realise they don't want Sharia law for all. Zarina says the death penalty has been mentioned again. What happens when we hang an innocent person? That's the very strong argument against it. I'm totally against the death penalty. Michelle says immigration officer is saying, I don't care if we stop the boats. It's the immigration minister, it's the person in charge of the whole thing, Michelle. If anyone needs much more proof that this is all by design, there it is. If it isn't obvious by now, then I don't know what it will take. Deliberately put in that position so they don't really well stop it. The Home Office is compromised, we all know that, and with giggling Mahmood at the helm, need we say more? Another person says, PDC, tell Mr Burnham to forget the buses and sort out the train fares. If I want to travel to London next week from Manchester, it will cost me over £300 and the trains are half empty. I resort to the 3 a.m. start to be at the office for 9 o'clock. It costs me £60 return in diesel. Public transport is outrageously unaffordable and unreliable. If you want people off the roads, then sort the scandalous pricing strategy from private companies. Good show as always. Well, thank you for that. Interestingly, on number 10 North and working from home and how embedded that is, Mary in County Down says working from home is well embedded throughout government. You don't get things done better by popping in to see people. I would strongly disagree with that because I have I've seen it in action myself as a special advisor in government for 3.5 years. I've seen it when I worked in the Northern Ireland office, for example, when I was in London some of the time and in Belfast the rest of the time. The face-to-face meetings were the way I got things done. I understand that different people have different views, but I just disagree with that. The Westminster bubble needs to be burst, says Mary. And also, another person, Ben in Belfast, says, should you show your hairy legs from the knees down? Yes, fine. It's not the legs, it's the terrible shorts. A few male civil servants that I have come across in my work wearing them on very hot days, but not baggy beach shorts. Proper shorts do exist, says Ben, so thank you for that. Mark says, not sure how we got on the topic of hairy legs, but just keep reminding me of Morecambe and Wise, where Eric would say about Ernie, he's got short, fat, hairy legs. Can't get that phrase out of my mind now. And on Al Carnes, Amanda says, Al Carnes for Reform UK seems too good a man for useless labour. And Ernie says, the only pair of hairy legs I want to see on talk is Larry the cat. Well, I can certainly agree with that. We'll talk about this Joe White aspect as well. Stay with us here on Talk.
I thought it was disgraceful, and you know, cabinet ministers are allowed to joke about things, but to joke about the fact that we've released 50,000 prisoners from jails under the Labour government since they came to power, I think is extraordinary, and I think it just reveals the contempt that there is. Like, Labour ministers just don't think that that matters. I think it's disgusting, and you can only imagine how PC Andrew Harper's family feel about that.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Mo's been in touch and says, I live in Joe White's constituency. She and her husband, Lord Mann, John Mann, live in a lovely house in a quiet village miles away from the town, which is overrun with homes of multiple occupancy and migrants wandering the streets. Like most of this government, it's a case of not in my backyard. She loves a photo opportunity, but does very little to benefit the area. The sooner we have an election, the better. Let's get the view of David Maddox on this. He is the political editor of The Independent. David, thanks for joining us and thanks for your patience this evening as well in this breaking news. What do you make of this comment by Joe White, who's just been appointed Immigration Minister?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's a classic hot mic kind of moment, isn't it? You know, Reform have already leapt on it. I've seen, Robert Jenrick was tweeting about it just before I came on air to you guys. You know, it's. I think it's handed them an easy attack line at a time when they were struggling, frankly. Although, you know, in fairness, I know Jo White has been doing a lot of stuff in the background. She was the kind of Red Wall Group chair for the Starmer years. And, you know, she did a lot of kind of holding the government's feet to the fire on this sort of issue. It'd be kind of interesting to know what the wider context of what she meant was. But
yes, and it's interesting.
It's a bad line from her.
She has been defended by some journalists who've interviewed her recently, including Noah Hoffman from The Spectator. Also, in regard to vetting, Reform UK have been criticised recently for their problems with vetting. I just wonder if the number 10 machine has perhaps failed to vet Joe White.
Well, maybe they have, but I suspect they've looked at it in the broader view, and that Joe has been very strong on this sort of issue and has not really been a pushover at all. You know, I actually felt that off the cuff comment, if you like, that hot mic comment, wasn't entirely reflective of the sort of person and politician she's been. So, you know, let's give her a chance to show herself. I mean, let's be frank, if Andy Burnham wasn't serious about the migration issue, he wouldn't have kept Shabana Mahmood as Home Secretary. He would have changed her. So, you know, I suspect that we're going to see really quite a tough immigration policy going forward.
It's interesting, just speaking of Noah Hoffman, she's political correspondent at The Spectator. She says this is bull. Well, she says it's nonsense. I've heard the full tape versus the edit, and the line is completely taken out of context in the edit. We absolutely should not condone this type of willful misinterpretation. Joe is one of Labour's biggest advocates for stopping the scourge of small boat crossings. I expect this will be a political row, whether that is the case or not. Let's talk a little bit about sentencing policy and the fact that so many different prisons and prison governors are up in arms this evening because the government can't make up its mind on sentencing policy, particularly when it comes to PC Andrew Harper's killers. This is the first real, I would argue, political row of the Burnham government because it's about competence, it's about policy. They're saying we'll review it, but the fact is practically there are many problems that creates in itself, by itself, essentially, David.
Yeah, I think in fairness to the Starmer government, you know, we've just been talking about Shabana Mahmood. She was the one who kind of kick-started all this when she was Justice Secretary. They were handed an absolute hospital pass on sentencing. You know, we had the prison system was literally about to collapse when they came to power. The Tories had left it in a dreadful state. So, you know, they didn't have much choice but to start releasing lots of people and trying to work it out. And they got some of it wrong. Now, obviously, the PC Harper case is a dreadful story. It was a dreadful thing that happened. But of course, it went to court because the Attorney General at the time thought that the sentences were too light. And, you know, the two people in question here were not the driver, as far as I understand. They were passengers in the car, which is slightly different.
You're absolutely right, David. The driver's sentence won't be reviewed. They were the passengers, but they were convicted. They were sentenced to 13 years each, and that would be 6.5 years. They'd be out by Christmas if they got this remission.
Yeah, and you know, it's bad cases make bad laws. You know, if you start picking and choosing, I suppose, then you've got an issue. The reason, of course, the governors are up in arms is because Andy Burnham wants to, review the entire early release business. Well, which is fine, and you can see the political reasons for it. Andy Burnham doesn't want to be unpopular very quickly. You know, he wants to do things which remain, keep his popularity and show that he's listening to the public. The trouble is, the prison system doesn't have the capacity, and it's about to fall on its face again. So, he can review it as much as he likes, but until he's got more prison places, then he's going to have problems.
Tell us as well your thoughts on the buses policy, the £2 buses reduction, because we've got £340 million pledged to end rough sleeping, £850 million to cut bills when it comes to energy bills, and £500,000 to cap bus fares. All in all, in a £1.4 trillion budget, that's not a huge amount, but you're coming up to nearly £2 billion there, and it's got to come from somewhere, and we just haven't been told where it's coming from.
Well, it's true, but I think he's going to try some bigger ticket items down the line. I mean, this is small beer, really. The criticism I've heard more of is, well, it won't make much difference. It's only, less than half a Mars bar or something per week, or
86p a week, yeah.
Yeah, but actually, I think it's good politics. He's kind of showing straight away that he's kind of listening to people. He wants to give them a bit of breathing space. These things mount up. If you are somebody, as millions and millions of people are, who use the bus every day to go to work, who need to get it back, especially late at night, if you're in the night kind of industry, nighttime industry.
Yes.
These things are incredibly important and valuable, and it's just very good politics.
It is good politics, certainly. I suppose the question comes how you pay for it. What do you make of Andy Burnham's first couple of days? Because he's been very ambitious, he's been very positive in what he's said. Is he doing a good job, do you think, overall?
I think he's coming in with lots of good vibes. The problem for me is that, he said on Friday that I've got a plan, and we still don't know what the plan is.
And he won't tell us what the plan is.
Well, exactly. But my big issue with him is that his avoidance of any scrutiny or questioning. We won't find out what the plan is until we can actually question him on it.
Yes.
We got 6 minutes. The political editors were given a huddle with him on Monday after he became Prime Minister. That lasted 6 minutes and 4 questions before he was whisked away. That's literally all we've had. He's had a couple of friendly chats with, frankly, friendly journalists. Very good journalists, but nevertheless, it's not the tough scrutiny that you would expect of a Prime Minister. Somebody who doesn't have to face Parliament until September. And I think this is, he's got good vibes at the moment. He's playing some good politics with some of his nice, easy announcements. But, you saw the issues with Darren Jones. There's clearly a Starmer faction forming, which is going to be quite vengeful of all these people who've been sacked. I mean, Mike Tapp, you mentioned Joe White earlier. Mike Tapp, of course, has just been sacked. He's a very vocal MP.
Yes.
This is, I think he's storing up problems for the future. And, we will see what happens when the kind of rubber really hits the road in September.
Yes, indeed. Do you think there'll be an early election? I don't, but I wonder what your thoughts were.
Well, I'm actually writing something up on this. I think there's a very good chance of an early election.
Okay.
I think if you look at these little announcements, it's all dependent on where they are in the polls come September. But, we could see October, we could see May next year. He will, at some point, need a fresh mandate because he won't be able to rely on that 2024 manifesto. And people will start questioning some of his bigger decisions. I mean, borrowing will be a big one because it's quite clear to me that they're looking at defence bonds, despite their public denials. Well, that's a breach of the borrowing rules.
Yes.
And to do that, you you need a fresh mandate.
Okay. David, thank you for your analysis. Thanks also for your patience. I know you hung on for a few minutes for us. I really appreciate that. That's David Maddox there, who is the political editor of The Independent. What do you make of what he said? 0344 499 1000. The big story this evening is Jo White, who is the new Immigration Minister. She says she doesn't care about small boats. Let's hear that clip again.
I don't care who the small boat. My priority. My priority. Yes, okay.
She's been defended, it should be said, by a journalist from The Spectator who says that it's out of context. We haven't heard from the Home Office. We have put a call into them to see what they say about that. So there has been some change in the government this evening. We still don't. I'm just double-checking my email here. They will, number 10 will put out the list of all the different ministers when they're properly appointed, but we don't have that just yet. What we do have is that Mike Tapp has been sacked as Immigration Minister. Jo White has taken over from him. You've just heard her views there. We also know that Al Carnes, who was the Armed Forces Minister, who thought at one stage of running for leader of the Labour Party, didn't happen. He's decided to stay on the back benches. I think Andy Burnham will not be too happy about that. Far better inside the tent. Laura Jane has given me a ring from Hampshire. Laura Jane, thanks for your call. 0344 499 1000 is the number you have rung. What are your thoughts on this situation and the politics of the day?
Well, a quick aside is I think we'll find Nigel Farage was right. May 2027, there will be an election.
Okay.
I'm putting my life on the line by saying that, but I think it won't be October simply because they'll want to get a budget through and show what they're supposedly thinking of doing. So that would be my reasoning. But the second thing is, what is the point of an immigration minister if they don't try and control our immigration? I don't see the point. I mean, why don't we just have a Home Secretary and leave it at that? I simply don't understand. It seems to me a waste of a post.
It is bizarre if that is in fact her opinion, if she doesn't care about stopping the boats. Do you think Shabana Mahmood does care about stopping the boats?
I think Shabana Mahmood cares about trying to solve a part of the problem, shall we say. I think that I think she sees that it is a very important part of public opinion in the way that she handles it. I think she's been making every effort to kind of solve the problem, maybe not in the way that we would like it to be, but I think that she's more on the side of making an effort. I don't know how much her hands are tied by this how much her hands will be tied by this new administration, but I certainly don't see the point of an immigration minister unless they are going to make an effort to control it. And it's not just about visas and who can come in here, and it's more than that as an immigration officer, isn't it? Immigration minister.
Do you think it's a good thing that Shabana Mahmood has been kept in that post? There was a lot of speculation she would be Chancellor. I think it's the right decision. I wonder if you do.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If for any reason other than chopping and changing is not very satisfactory for the office that they work in, I just feel that it's for continuity. It's not like she made some huge gaffes, although she certainly did the other evening at that drinks or whatever it was. But it's not. It seems to me that if there's it's important to have continuity if the minister is doing a fairly good job and they're not making a mess of it, which. And I do think she would have made not a particularly good Chancellor.
Okay.
Let's face it.
Well, yeah, she certainly had really not expressed many views on the economy anyway. Yeah. Laura Jane, thanks for your comments this evening. Appreciate that. That's Laura Jane in Hampshire there. Thanks also to Margaret in Birmingham, who says Jo White, West Streeting, Shabana are already giving Andy Burnham problems. He has to address this migrant problem now. He cannot ignore it. It should be top of his agenda, says Margaret in Birmingham. Leslie in Hartley says, I wonder why your guest had to have a dig at reform while discussing Jo White. They seem to be such an easy target at the moment. Lee says, good vibes don't sort the problems out. Keith says, Peter, cheap bus rides don't help me in the middle of Lincolnshire. I'm sure it's okay in Manchester. Fiona says, Burnham is having a nightmare start. Ministers laughing at the early release of police murderers. Illegal immigration via boats not important. Clearly we have a government that considers the victims of crime unimportant and the perpetrators of crime needing everything that can be offered, hugs and lollipops included, says Fiona. I'm not defending those ministers for a second who were joking about letting people out, but they weren't joking about Andrew Harper's murderers. They weren't specifically talking about that. That's just a factual point. I'm not defending them, and that joke was, of course, something they apologise for. Andy in County Down says, everybody keeps saying this is day 3. It's not. They've already been in government for 2 years. No excuses for stupid mistakes at this stage. Another Leslie says, obviously no vetting of prospective ministers. Surely Burnham should be aware of what ministers' views are before appointing them. Phil in Portsmouth says, if you are handed the death sentence in America, it takes years to carry out the sentence, so why can't we introduce it here? It still gives the justice system a long time to sort guilt or innocence, especially on cut and dry cases. And Nicola in Norfolk. Nicola, it's a little while since I've heard from you. Thank you for your message. She says the bus fare cap is great if you live in an area which actually has plenty of buses, but many rural areas don't have any significant bus service. Some places might just have one bus a day if they're lucky. How are bus operators supposed to afford running a service and employing people? Because I bet the government subsidy won't cover actual costs. It's all smoke and mirrors and rather good politics. It's more of the same smoke, mirrors and sleight of hand. I cannot believe people are falling out for it, says Nicola. We will, at long last, talk about hairy legs and shorts, due to public demand, in just a moment with Claire Muldoon. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Peter, we're waiting to see your legs, says Ian. I don't know. I mean, Japanese women are complaining about men's hairy legs in the office. The government initiative urging workers to wear shorts to cope with the heat, but not everyone is a fan. Maybe the fans would help. Japanese women have complained of leg hair harassment after men were encouraged to wear shorts to work. The thing is with this show, we do think about the visuals, of course, but the fact is that the majority of people are listening, and maybe that's the right thing when it comes to my legs, because you are with Talk, of course. You can listen on DAB Plus radio or your smart speaker. You can watch us on YouTube or your connected device. And both temperatures and energy prices are soaring in Japan, and a government initiative is urging men to ditch their traditional uniforms for shorts and polo shirts this summer. But the presence of bare legs in the office has triggered so much debate that a new term has been coined in the Japanese media, sunahara, or leg hair harassment, to describe the uncomfortable feeling many women feel when forced to see their colleagues' uncovered limbs. Well, Claire Muldoon is a colleague of mine and indeed was on the debate desk just yesterday. She's not in the office just at the moment, not just because she's run away from my legs, but Claire, is your sympathy with the Japanese women or the Japanese men?
The Japanese women, of course. And did I not say to you, young man, yesterday, that how smart you were looking in your suit? Because it was so refreshing not to see those link sausages dangling from a pair of shorts. It is not so much, you know, the hair, because some of that wonderful team behind your glass, a lot of them wear shorts as well. That's, you know, but I don't even like that. I don't even think they should be, because you need to be appropriately dressed in a professional setting, and shorts, I'm afraid, just aren't it.
But I am appropriately dressed, because the vast majority of people who will see me only from the waist up.
Doesn't matter, Peter.
Well,
you're walking in very thin water there. You really, really are. You need to feel that what you're saying then, judges can sit with suspenders on and stuff like that, only because their gowns are comfortable.
I wouldn't advocate that, but they are the vast majority of. I mean, you're talking about probably fewer than 10 people who'll see me in the office in shorts. But when it comes to Japan, they're experiencing 41.8 degrees Celsius heat. And I mean, women can wear skirts or trousers if they want to, or shorts, and nobody remarks upon that.
I don't think that women should be wearing shorts either. I think they should be wearing skirts long enough to cover their knees in a professional setting. I mean, that's the thing. That's the key here. It's modesty and it's respect and it's professionalism. I'm sorry, but if you're half dressed like a centaur, then you're just not 100% professional, my friend.
Well, the fact is, I mean, it's not just about me, it's about the Japanese as well.
Well, you've made it about you, PC.
Well, the viewers and listeners have. I've been asked by numerous people to show, and Kevin's been talking about this earlier on today. I mean, Claire, I just...
Kevin O'Sullivan's legs I wouldn't like to see in a pair of shorts.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've been very, in my 41 years, I have learned that when it comes to women, not criticising hair, clothes, makeup.
Women.
No, I'm not talking about hair. Hair on their head. Hair, clothes, menstrual cycle, and makeup. Any of those things. Just don't criticise. Just don't go anywhere near that.
No,
I'm 42. Can't. I'm 42 as well. Someone's just reminded me you're 42. 41 was last year. So it changes every year. I can't keep up.
Tell me, which phone did that come in on? The red one or the green one, Peter?
You see, this all goes back. This all goes back. This is the reason you don't like my hairy legs. The main reason, the one reason Claire Muldoon doesn't like my hairy legs is I have two phones, like a drug dealer. I have two phones. One is a personal phone, one is a work phone, and Claire's on the work phone and she must be on the personal phone. So, listen, Claire, there's only one way to resolve this.
Don't wear your shorts.
I mean,
oh no! Peter, no!
I think people need to see the hairy legs, don't you? Claire is dumbfounded. If you're listening on the radio, you've got off very, very lightly there. I'm now banned from Japan, Claire. I can never show my face in Tokyo. She's still laughing.
But like, I've seen them before. That's no bad thing, to be banned from Japan. Because this certain thing is I've always said, even when I've worked in offices, look, lads, please don't bare your legs. It's just not right. It's not even on the commute and everything else. It's not.
But it's hot. It's hot, Claire. What else would you ban from the workplace?
Vaping. Indoors.
Okay. Indoors,
vaping indoors.
All right.
I'd ban children. I'd ban...
You'd ban children, okay.
Yeah. I'd ban awful coffee machines.
Right.
Like, because we've got a few up at Talk Towers.
We certainly do, yes. The worst thing is when you get a new person. Now, this is hashtag middle class problems. I can't actually leave here when I'm presenting, as you know, unless I need to go to the loo very, very quickly.
Yeah.
I can't make myself a cup of tea. Sometimes you get new people who make the tea through the coffee machine, just taste of coffee. I mean, these are big issues. These are big issues. Angie has been in touch and says, leave our Peter alone, Claire. Peter has fabulous legs. So there we are. We also have...
But look, Angie, fine, okay? But he can show those legs appropriately in the swimming pool, at the beach, whatever. Just not at work.
Elisa also says, for goodness sake, what a prude. Equality reigns. What do you make of that?
I'm certainly not prudish, but equality. Exactly. You wouldn't see a woman sport a pair of shorts in the workplace.
I've seen women wear shorts in the workplace. I've seen women wear, sometimes quite short skirts in the workplace as well.
Well, they shouldn't be. Short skirts should be banned from the workplace.
So how do you have that conversation with someone? I mean, forget about me, but how do you have that conversation?
It's like body odour with a work colleague. It's a form of fraternal correction. It's coming from a place of love, not empathy, because you can't empathise with someone being like that. So you sit them down and you say, look, especially in this hot weather, you're here to do a professional job. We must dress appropriately for the job that we're doing. And if you are, if you do suffer from body odour, then you need to remind people that, there are ways to get around this. There's loads of soap in toilets in the workplace. Go and wash your arms, dry yourself off, use a bit of deodorant, because my goodness me, although we don't all want to smell like Talk Sports as if it's like links from Africa, But you know,
Wow.
we do want to take.
I've been banned from Japan, but you've been banned from talkSPORT, Claire. How do you have that conversation? Because it's fine if you're a boss, but if I were to say that to one of my colleagues, some of whom are wearing shorts today, in fact the two sitting in front of me behind the glass are wearing shorts, and that's fine, and I have absolutely no issue with that. The point is, I suppose, that if you as a colleague just go up to someone and say, I don't think you should wear shorts, you're going to be sent to HR, aren't you?
Well, yeah, you do. So then you need to then have a word with the boss to say, look, I don't think this is appropriate. But if it is a colleague, then it is from the top down, I'm afraid. So it has to come from them. And if it's allowed, then it's allowed. It's just my personal preference that I don't think it's right. If you want to cycle into work, by all means, wear shorts, cycle in, and then change. There's linen trousers, you know. There's chinos. There's plenty of trouser wears that you can wear.
And this is the thing. Actually, we had a texter earlier on who said if you're wearing kind of linen or smart shorts, actually that's okay in the workplace, but not the sort of pantaloon type that I wear. Alison's been in touch, and Alison got in touch earlier actually and said that she wanted me to show my legs. Then I said, I suppose I'll have to for the item. She then replied and said, thank you for letting me know. I'll make sure I have my glasses on.
Look, Angeli, I can tell you, Harry Styles, he ain't, so don't worry, lads.
OK. Thank you very much indeed, Claire Muldoon. We will see you back in the debate desk probably next week. Claire Muldoon there, the broadcaster on hairy legs. Deb says, great legs, Peter, perhaps a hint of fake tan. No fake tan here, let me tell you. I'm white and pretty pasty. Ernie says, I've got to be honest, Peter, I've seen better legs hanging out of a nest, which is fair enough, Ernie. Also, Alison says, you have nice legs, Peter, so ignore everybody. Your leg is my new screensaver. It's a highlight of my day. Wow. OK, and Catherine in Cardiff says, love you, Peter. I'm 100% behind Claire, though. Professionalism reigns. We have become too casual and too scruffy as a nation, says Catherine. Zarina says, the male teachers at school wore shorts just before we broke up. They were tailored and smart. Seeing them took me back to Australia. You wear your shorts, Peter. Comfort comes first. Joanna says, hi, Cardi P. I am sure you have very elegant legs. It's the question of the hairy chest. The worst is men who believe by shaving their legs to save 1/1,000,000th of a second off their cycling speed, they are just rubbish cyclists. And Mark says, I've never heard Claire Muldoon lost for words, but you finally managed it, Peter. Thank you very much. We'll go back on to, I think, the serious topics. We've got a couple of callers on the line, and we'll talk to them. Or maybe you want to put your voice note or your text, or indeed your phone call in on the topic of hairy legs, or anything else in the workplace, or any of the other topics we're talking about. 0344 499 1000. We'll also speak to Petri Hoskin about what's coming up on her programme. So stay with us here on Talk.
I thought it was disgraceful, and you know, cabinet ministers are allowed to joke about things, but to joke about the fact that we've released 50,000 prisoners from jails under the Labour government since they came to power, I think is extraordinary, and I think it just reveals the contempt that there is. Like, Labour ministers just don't think that that matters. I think it's disgusting, and you can only imagine how PC Andrew Harper's family feel about that.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Quite a lot of breaking news this evening. Here's another bit. The US has signed a landmark nuclear deal with Saudi Arabia. The deal will reportedly enable Saudi Arabia to develop a civilian nuclear program. Nuclear experts, former officials in Israel, the US's top ally in the Middle East, have warned that such an agreement could lead to Saudi Arabia being able to develop a nuclear weapon. It could enrich its own uranium, I should say. Hardliners in Iran could be encouraged to secretly race to build a bomb. Some argue as well. The deal follows years of stalled talks between the United States and Saudi Arabia. Thanks to everybody who's been in touch, including one person on Twitter who says we should copy El Salvador and build a couple of super prisons. A spell on one of those would cure recidivism. Sarah Jane Davies says more prisons should be built using labour from open prisons and those due for release. They can learn a trade while providing free labour. Until then, Andy Burnham should have static caravans or tents put in the grounds of prisons. William says it's all theatre. Burnham is a puppet. He has not appointed the cabinet. All the cabinet appointments have no experience or are unfit for the posts allocated. There's a systematic destruction of the UK. Who's pulling the strings? Is it the EU or is it China? I think it's Andy Burnham who's pulling the strings, I'm afraid, William. Carol says, seeing your hairy legs cheered me up. Angela says, save us from seeing Andy Burnham on multiple buses. Reminds me of Boris and his bus obsession. It's very becoming, all this gurning and looking like a comedian doing a documentary on bus travel for Channel 5, says Angela. Les says, buses under construction, contracts farmed out to the Chinese, all built with metals and components produced ultimately by fossil fuels. British companies in Northern Ireland and Scotland not given the contracts. Total farce. The vast majority of UK citizens requiring a car or van to conduct their business. Is the cost of net zero. That's the problem. We are ruled by city boys and their horrible lefty net zero farce. Bankrupt Britain is only a matter of time. Teddy says, Mike Tapp is an utter buffoon and happy for the boats to arrive, surprising given his constituency. Angela says, I have a feeling that I agree with Claire Muldoon regarding shorts for work. Maybe designers need to produce a summer wear shorts for the UK market for the hot spells in summer. Unfortunately, some legs are only made for radio and should remain covered. Oh, all right, Angela. I'll get to more messages in a second, but I want to go to Lisa in Nottingham first about prisons and whether they are fit for purpose. Lisa, we clearly have an issue here with too many people in prisons. What do you think the solution is? What should the government do? You're very welcome to the programme.
Thank you, Peter. Well, first of all, I think for far too many years, prisons are even better than holiday camps. Often offenders repeat crimes purely so they can go back in there because they're living a lot better life than most of us tax-paying people are at the moment. So my suggestion is, get rid of all the illegal immigrants for starters, and instead of looking at XRF bases to house foreign immigrants, because we're going to hopefully ship them out, is why can't we turn some of them bases into prisons? They've already got the plumbing there, and the buildings have got obviously the structures there, so there would be minimal amount of changes to turn them into prisons, and then we could house all these criminals in the right place, but take away all the good things that they have, Peter.
Lisa, thanks for your comments. Appreciate that. That's Lisa in Nottingham there. Margaret in Birmingham says, Joe White, West Street and Shabana are already giving Andy Burnham problems. He has to address this migrant problem now. He can't ignore it. Ernie says, if Joe White said I don't care about stopping the boats, that's not my department. That's someone else's problem. My priority is doing my job to the best ability of my constituents. Now, that would be admirable. I hope now she's Immigration Minister, she says, that's her priority now, says Ernie. Another person says Burnham could stop the boats by giving them a bus. There we go, you stop the boats. Michelle says, what was Claire wittering about? Get the legs out, be free, be comfortable, we're only human, who cares? I wouldn't even think about it if someone had their legs out. Life is too short. Let's speak to Mark in Lincolnshire about Joe White, about the new Immigration Minister. Mark, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hi there, Peter. Yeah, I wasn't going to call in tonight.
Well, you have, and you're very welcome to the airwaves.
Indeed. Yeah, just listening to the conversation regarding this supposed clip that Joe White's come out with, saying she doesn't care about stopping the boats or whatever. That looks like it's completely doctored.
It's not doctored. It is what she said. The question is whether it is in context. That is, one journalist for the Spectator has raised that and said, is it in context?
What Joe White MP is saying is that this has been taken out of context fraudulently. Well, sorry, let me read you what she said. This is an edited audio clip which deliberately and fraudulently misquotes me speaking at a meeting with local residents last year. What I actually said and confirmed by a resident who attended the meeting was, I don't care who stops the boats as long as they're stopped. That's what she's saying.
Okay.
Now, I'm sorry, I'm far more inclined to believe this because it does make sense, because it doesn't make any sense why Burnham would get rid of the existing immigration minister, because he's causing, you know, Shabana Mahmood problems or whatever, just to replace with somebody that is completely, you know, if she said that, then it would be quite, you know, Burnham or whoever, you know, Labour themselves would know that she's not particularly keen on stopping the votes. They would know that.
Yeah, let me just,
we just any logical sense.
I just want to play.
He'd just be creating a headache for himself, wouldn't he?
Okay, hold on a second, Mark. What I'm going to do now is play the clip again that has been on Robert Jenrick's Twitter. It's also been on the Guido Fawkes website. Let's just play the clip again.
I don't care who it's talking about. My priority. My priority. Yes, okay.
So we think she said, I don't care if we stop the boats. She has said, I don't care who stopped the boats. Judge for yourself. Let's play it again.
I don't care who it's talking about. My priority. Yes,
okay, well, hold on a second, Mark. Hold on a second, Mark. Just to read out what she has said in her tweet, this is an edited audio clip which deliberately and fraudulently misquotes me speaking at a meeting with local residents last year. What I actually said and confirmed by a resident who attended the meeting was, I don't care who stops the boats as long as they are stopped. Mark.
What I was going to say there was, when you actually listen to the clip itself, Peter, you must know this yourself, or you must have noticed this yourself. The one part of the clip that is not really, you know, you can't really audibly hear what it's saying is the key part. Who? Yeah?
Okay, yeah.
Or don't, you know,
yeah,
I
sure.
don't care who stops the boat, or what Reform are trying to say she's saying.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I don't care if we stop the boat.
Yes.
Is what they're trying to say.
Okay.
That key word there is the only part of that clip that kind of goes a bit muffled. You can't really tell what's being said. Have you not noticed that?
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I mean, Reform UK are saying they haven't doctored it, certainly, but I totally accept what you're saying, Mark, in that there is an ambiguity there in terms of what she's actually said. And just to say that Joe White denies that she said what Reform are accusing her of saying. This is an edited audio clip she says, which deliberately and fraudulently misquotes me speaking at a meeting with local residents last year. What I actually said, and confirmed by a resident who attended the meeting, was, I don't care who stops the boats as long as they are stopped. Thank you to Mark for his comments as well. Let's speak to Joan in Sunderland, who's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Joan, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say just before we have a chat with Petri Hoskin?
Hello.
Hi.
I think this country is more like a banana republic every day. And these people who think that they have a God-given right to be, the wish to be Prime Minister, I don't care. It's way down in my list how much a bus fare costs. What I'm concerned about is beautiful, productive people whose lives are being snuffed out by these scumbags who, no doubt, will be around for years to come. Another thing I care about is communities who are being swamped with illegal migrants, and their way of life is changing beyond anything they ever imagined. These men wandering around city centres, cafes and things like that will be not be visited like by the people who used to enjoy going out for a coffee or such like. Children are not allowed to walk unaccompanied, to go to different clubs or what have you. And if you wanted to sell your home in one of these places, you haven't got a hope in hell. Who wants to move there?
Joan, I just wonder, I mean, we're only on day 3 of Andy Burnham here as Prime Minister. Do you think anything he has done is positive? I mean, you may not care about, as you say, about bus prices going down, about the bus fare going down, but that will help many, many people. 43% of people use the bus at least once a week.
Well, to be quite honest, no. The first thing he did was give money away. We need all the money we get.
Yeah.
I would love these people to listen to what we are saying. The problems we have is immigration, defence, you name it. Not a thing like that is being looked at all. And I'm fed up of these politicians. I'm really cheesed off, who look down their noses and sneer at us as if they are the intelligentsia and the silent, law-abiding majority. We've got one working brain cell between us. Well, let me tell you, you are wrong. And whoever it was who said, I see you, that's what the silent majority are saying now. We see you, we are cheesed off, and we are not going to accept this for I don't know how long. Get your act together or get out.
Thank you, Joan. Great words there. Michelle says it's all very well for people to comment on what life in prison is like, i.e. a holiday camp, but how have they actually been in one? I was in remand for 7 weeks. It really opened my eyes to how hard it is. It is. Life in prison is tough. I've been in quite a number of prisons when I was at the Ministry of Justice, including Belmarsh, which is absolutely no holiday camp, let me tell you. Margaret says dressing appropriately for work. Could we get a message to some of the female MPs as they look as if they're going to a fashion show and not representing the government? Another person says, in all capital letters, what about women with hairy legs? Behave. This is nonsense. Also, Amanda says tailored shorts can look very smart. Look at Bermuda. The debate continues. No doubt it's the #1 story on Patrick Hoskin's programme.
Are you wearing shorts today?
I am, yes.
Because I am angered by
that in general.
By your hairy legs.
Okay. Why?
I don't know.
They're jealousy. You want your legs to be as hairy as mine.
I want my legs to be as hairy.
They never will be.
I know.
Let me tell you.
They never will be. Never. I don't know anybody who's got hairier legs than you, frankly. No. I thought there was another pair of trousers on underneath.
It's never been easier to get hold of testosterone if you want to move in that direction.
I know.
I think that's probably not what you're going to do.
You're just so manly.
That's it.
Right. Of course, we're going to talk about Burnham. We're talking to Sir Vernon again. An old friend of yours.
Professor Sir Vernon, indeed. Yeah. Taught David Cameron.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to chat with him, because if anybody knows about the history of politics, it's him and where Andy Burnham is placing himself. We're also going to look at the Trump versus BBC case, because that is getting really interesting. And I think the BBC have pulled an absolute